All right, here we are again for another Patreon upload. This one is for this man. This one is going way back. We did X-Men: Days of Future Past a while ago, and this is a long episode. This is clocking in about 3 hours. I've had mixed feelings on a lot of the X-Men movies. I think they're at the time the original X-Men films were really impressive. Now you look back and you just think to yourself, man, these are so quaint by comparison to everything we get now. The best thing to come out of these X-Men films was that we got Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, which is not character accurate. Wolverine is like 5'2". They had a joke about that in Deadpool and Wolverine. That was pretty great. But yeah, these X-Men movies, they were kind of up and down for a bit. There's also the problematic element of Bryan Singer. If you want a whole, there's a whole mess of stories about him. I don't know why that guy isn't in jail. I really don't. I guess money can buy you anything. This one is an interesting film because it's not bad. It's actually pretty good. We had a slew of not so great X-Men films. And then this one comes out and you just think to yourself, wow, this is actually pretty good. Not perfect, but it's pretty good. There's things I don't like in it, but overall, I think that is overall a successful film. Not exactly a great adaptation of its comic of the same name, but it's as a standalone X-Men movie and a way of moving forward, it felt like a great start. And then they screwed it up with X-Men Apocalypse. So it's a decent movie. It's very well done. It looks pretty good. It's got this gloom over it with Bryan Singer. I don't know why that guy isn't in prison. He really should be. Yeah, there's a book I would recommend checking out called "Burn It Down" by Maureen Ryan. I'll be interviewing her later on this year about abuse of power and harassment within the Hollywood system. I highly recommend it. And there's this little moment when it discusses Bryan Singer and various other people he's been associated with. It will sober you up very quickly with regards to the Hollywood system. Yeah, a lot of people get away with a lot of horrible things. But this film, that's more the focus here. And so here it is. Here's the Patreon 3-hour cuts. Have some time free of X-Men Days of Future Past Film Rescue. Enjoy.
Welcome to the Film Rescue Show. We're lending a helping hand to Hollywood fixing their feature films. Today I'm joined by our hosts Jesse and Brandon. Hello, gentlemen.
Howdy.
Yeah, hello.
And we have a guest, Aaron, on the show today. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
You sent I don't want to say aggressive, but an email that was broad in the films that you wanted to tackle, and we narrowed it down to the film of the day. We are talking about Days of Future Past, directed by Bryan Singer. You picked a few, so I get the feeling you've got thoughts on movies.
I've had thoughts on movies for years. I had no place to explore it, so when somebody was like, yeah, we do a podcast that does this, I'm like, oh my god, that's amazing.
Right. That's, yeah, the point of the show is basically like, hypothetically, this could be better. I like that you picked this one. You had a couple other options that I think will get covered in the future, and maybe we'll have you back on to touch on those. I don't want to spoil that for the audience. And this is going to be the penultimate episode of the show for this season before we get into The Rise of Skywalker. Days of Future Past. Wow, this was their end game, kind of, right?
Yeah, they act like half the cast during the movie.
It should have been been their endgame.
Yeah.
Well, like they got literally everybody to come back. This is like their biggest time spanning story.
It's a time travel story.
Yeah, this is basically giant retcon the movie, but in a way that I don't hate entirely.
Yeah, this is an anomaly because it's a Bryan Singer film, yet it's actually pretty good.
I normally
Right.
like Brian Seller.
I mean, to be fair, if you go back to X-Men 2 and even the first
Oh, yeah.
one, you can see that Singer, when he actually was trying, was good.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
See also Bohemian Rhapsody for the opposite.
Yes, or X-Men Apocalypse, which followed after this for the opposite.
Bingo.
There you go. So this is technically the last good X-Men film. I don't count Logan or the Deadpool films because those are singular films about singular characters. So this is the
True.
last like ensemble film that was good.
True.
I have thoughts on Apocalypse, but I dare not utter them in case you guys tackle it.
We already covered that one. Go back
I
listen
mean,
to the Jack Packard episode. He pitched 4
Sit-
movies.
Oh,
Samson's dead at.
Yeah. Simpsons did it.
Yeah, so I want to bust into this movie, but as I like to do at the top, let's jump into positives first. For which, weirdly, I don't know what happened. We started off this season on a very like sour note for the films that were getting picked, and then the end of this season has been like American History X and Days of Future Past and like legitimately pretty good movies. But
Yeah.
you know, the show isn't about bad movies; it's just about storytelling.
Yeah.
Well, we have to wrap it up with a big piece of shit. So
Yeah, well,
that's the
okay.
wrap of the season. But before that,
True.
we have a good one to go up to set us up for the last trilogy of bad episodes.
so what you're
Right.
doing is the roller coaster effect for the audience. You're like, yeah, we got a good
Yes,
one,
this
and
is
then
the
we're gonna
build-up.
hit the low.
Oh yeah.
Rising action and falling action.
Way to
Yep.
build that audience up.
Exactly. So, Days of Future Past is definitely, I think, definitely in my top 5, if not my top 3 favorite X-Men films, as far as what all we get to see. But I'm interested to know what you guys think. Let's start the show off with Jesse. What were some of your positives on recent rewatch?
I mean, it's hard to say anything that's really like straight up bad about this film. I mean, positives like visually, this film looks really, really good.
Yeah.
I really like the look of it. It's the future looks dark and gray appropriately, and the past looks bright and colorful. It's like it's appropriate for a dichotomy of time and a dichotomy of a contrast of color.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks very unique. It doesn't look like 3 Shades of Concrete, thank God. Apocalypse looked like 3 Shades of Concrete, which is kind of hilarious because it's directed by the same guy. But you look at this film, and it's Brandon and I covered this film on our YouTube show that's now defunct, unfortunately. Someone has to review it, and we both gave it 8 out of 10s. We said the visual effects looked really, really good because the prior film to this, First Class, we really liked that movie, but some of the visual effects looked a little cheap sometimes.
Sure.
Yeah.
Like there was some not so great visual effects. The green screen was a little funky, and even in this film, the green screen sometimes is a little funky. But overall, it visually looks amazing. I like the music. The sound design is great. Performances are really strong. Hugh Jackman still carries this movie really well, even though it is. I mean, technically, it is the Wolverine show, but all the other characters do sort of carry the film appropriately. So,
Yeah.
It's the last time we had a good ensemble X-Men film, and this does feel a bit like an ensemble. Well,
Totally.
Logan in the end of this film doesn't do anything. He gets thrown
literally-
into the river and then he drowns.
He literally gets yeeted out of the
Yes,
film.
like you're out of your own movie. Yeah, I think that's the sign that they were kind of done with Wolverine for a little while until he got his own solo film, and then they finally killed him off.
Right.
He shows up for a cameo in Apocalypse, and it was terrible. Yeah, because hey, we need Wolverine cameo to save this piece of shit.
Right. Let me.
So that's why Dark Phoenix didn't make any money.
Yes.
Yes,
Oh,
that's why.
That's a whole other story.
That's totally the only reason why I didn't make any money.
It had nothing to do with the fact that Disney had bought Fox at that point and the universe was already defunct. But no, it's totally that.
New Mutants.
Like,
who?
what was more of a purgatory film, that or the still not yet released New Mutants?
Oh
No, hold on.
God.
Excuse me, I burped. Excuse me. No, I'm excited for New Mutants for a couple reasons.
It's getting released on Disney Plus. It's going to get released.
But the reshoots.
Which aren't even going to be part of it now.
yeah, they're just
Well-
going back to the original version. They're just going to release the original.
Okay.
I'd like to.
Yeah, it's almost like a middle finger to the fox at that point.
It's a
I'd
straight,
like
it's a
to-
straight horror.
Not
film.
knowing that, I want to hit my head into my oak desk, but
It's gonna be so weird seeing that film and Macy Williams is in it. And she was like what 14 at the time. She's like what 20
Yeah.
now.
I'm actually
Yeah.
okay with that.
That film is.
I remember
sat on
seeing
a
the
shelf.
trailer in theaters.
Yeah. Oh,
Before
man.
Thor
Yeah.
Ragnarok.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Almost 3
Yep.
years ago.
God, it's bizarre.
So, are we getting a
Right.
non-Disney Plus cut of what it's supposed to be?
I want to throw
I mean,
an
that's
asterisk
only
on
That's
the,
only a rumor
Oh.
right now.
Yeah.
They're still allegedly aiming for a later theatrical release post-COVID.
and
so we'll
Tenet
see
will
what
come out
happens
in
with that.
July. I bet.
Okay.
Sure.
yeah.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, that was like a 2-week delay. When I heard delay, it's like, oh, is it going to be in November? No, 2 weeks. Like, oh, okay, sure. We'll
That's
see
probably
what
a,
happens.
It's probably a visual effects thing. Then.
Just because the footage reaches the theaters does not mean the theaters will
Yeah.
open. And I want to put an asterisk on the New
Yeah,
Mutants
sorry.
thing. So they were pretty clear that they want to put out the director's cut, but also reshoots are expensive, and I can't imagine they won't somehow make it into that film in some way, shape, or form. That's just Hollywood. Oh, I was going to say the F word, but I can't. It's not 10 minutes yet. Brandon, how about
It's okay.
you?
I already swore.
Positives
throw in
on
the sound of Wolverine claws to cover up swearing.
yes, snick snack. Brandon, how about you? Positives for Days of Future Past.
So it's funny. I was actually thinking about this earlier about how when this film came out, the only good X-Men film we had recently prior to this was First Class, because prior to that you had X-Men Last Stand, which I feel like people are now hating less because Dark Phoenix exists.
Yeah.
Not much, but enough. They're like, oh yeah, I guess it could have been worse. And then of course after that we had X-Men Origins, Wolverine, which to this day I feel like people go back and forth as to which one they hate more, that or 3. And then we had The Wolverine between First Class and Days of Future Past, which was fine. I mean, it was
Yeah.
entertaining. Definitely a step up from X-Men Origins, even though I joke to this day, and not everyone's seen this film, so they have no idea what the hell I'm talking about. There's a movie called Tower of Death that's essentially a Bruceploitation film produced by the people who actually made the real Bruce Lee films, and it rips off stuff from Tower of Death, right down to a fake funeral taking place at the exact same goddamn location as in the fake funeral in Tower of Death, complete with that orange tower in the background. I'm sitting in the theater like, is that the same funeral parlor from Tower of Death? What the Anyway, but yeah, and then X-Men Days of Future Past comes out, and with First Class, it's like, okay, we know we can still have good ensemble X-Men films,
Yeah.
but to basically see like the original ensemble commingle with the newer cast members and have it all come together, it's like, wow, we can still get good movies out of this franchise. It seemed like it was stumbling to come back to life. And I remember when First Class came out, that was basically due to them kind of taking the ideas that they initially were going to have for like an X-Men Origins Magneto film,
Yeah.
and then just making it a prequel instead. But it was also supposed to be a reboot, which is why it contradicts so much from the older films. And then X-Men Days of Future Past is going, okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to retcon a few things so we can make that film a prequel, not a reboot, but also get rid of the shittier moments from X-Men 3, X-Men Origins. So it's like, hey, you can now just keep whatever you like from those older films thanks to this movie. And that's the thing, I feel like this was a return to form to have good action, good drama, bring back the heart of these characters, not just make, oh, look at the cool stuff that we're making happen on screen that you can see go boom. It was actually like putting effort into it and like actually giving a shit about these characters again. Yeah. And I remember leaving the theater and just feeling fulfilled. It's like, hey, this is what these films should be like. I can't wait to see the next one. And 2 years later. Yeah. So, I mean, that was the thing. It's like, it kind of brought back what these films could have been, especially when we were at this point 6 years into the era of the MCU, that we were at the time still able to get decent Marvel films outside of MCU. Didn't last long, but for that time it was a nice I don't want to say breath of fresh air because it kind of shits on First Class because that was a good one too, but I feel like this was even better than that. But yeah, I think overall as a film, like I said, good pacing, good storytelling, even if a little convoluted. I mean, when you have time travel or, sending a message to the past in this case, it can get convoluted, but it was still entertaining. It still did its job. And yeah, like you said, I too would probably rank this in like the top 3 X-Men films, ensemble or including the Wolverine films. I will put it in the top 3.
Yeah, totally. Aaron, how about you? What are some? Did you rewatch this leading up to the podcast? I never tell explicitly the guests to do that, but sometimes I assume they do.
No, but the caveat counter argument to that is, in my head, I've been arguing about what I would change for years, so I think I was okay.
There you go.
Since we're touching on everything about X-Men, I'll go into the positive of this film, but then I have commentary. Whatever. Anyway, so.
Oh, yeah. We'll jump into negatives.
No, not negatives. People have been talking about other films to compare it to, and right.
Sure.
So I disagree with the ranking on Last Stand. Well, I'll get into that in a second. So the positives of this film, I could easily say the cinematography, the coloring, and all that stuff that was already mentioned. That was beautiful. That wasn't what I had an issue with the film. When I left the theater, my issue. Tiny plot hole stuff. But knowing what I knew about the production going into this movie and being kind of hyped up for it, and as with all films, I take this. I absolutely believe this. If you are overly hyped, your expectations are high, you can sort of trigger yourself to be like, that wasn't as good as I thought it would be. It's right.
Sure.
And not that happened with this film. I was very happy coming out of the theater, but the more I mulled upon it over time, the more I'm like, there's a couple things that it just didn't hit. But on the positive side, it did hit. Ensemble cast, the cinematography was great. The plot for time travel was, without getting into you need to be a comic nerd to understand this or any of that stuff, great for mass audience to sit down and have a summer movie and not walk out of it going, what did I just watch? Is this Looper? I don't understand time travel. Because
right.
Looper doesn't even understand time travel. Which, I'm not going to go down that well.
Looper doesn't want to understand time travel.
That's the
kind
point,
of
yeah.
It's not the point of the movie, so I can let it go.
Yeah, no, I can let it go too, but I just, yeah. Anyway, so things I will say about the positives on this, what we got out of this that was really nice was First Class sort of proved that they could come back and do, it was sort of a reboot, sort of a retooling for X-Men, but it didn't have nearly the budget you'd expect from an X-Men movie. Really, First Class was just meant to expand their hold on the license. And I think for the budget and for the time and, that being a fresh face to X-Men, First Class absolutely kicked butt. I was going to say the other thing, but absolutely, I was blown away by First Class. And then I was so...
You're allowed to cuss now, by the way.
Okay, so First Class kicked so much ass, I almost went blind walking out of the theater. No, I'm but it was, you don't have very key characters in their prime. You're introducing all these, unknown mutants, and it still holds up with a great plot that was time appropriate for the era of the movie. And then coming into this, I'm like, oh my god, I can't wait to see them both together. And I'll go down that rabbit hole, but we have this ensemble film that did a really good job of bridging the gaps between the two worlds. Did a really good job of making sure that most of the characters felt relevant to some degree. Obviously, it's the Wolverine show for most X-Men movies, and we've come to expect that. That's nothing new. And yet the other characters still have enough of a stage presence to be there where you're really watching an X-Men and Brotherhood, mutants film where you're getting to see kind of the core of what the X-Men comics about Apocalypse and the joining of those two teams together would feel like, because Days of Future Past in the comics, they really didn't join together, but for Apocalypse, they did. And you sort of get that camaraderie between not only the ensemble cast, but the two halves that primarily in the series were adversarial. And I think that's the thing that really tied this movie together and kind of made the soul of the movie shine, is where you get to see that, yes, this is so bleak, not from a visual perspective, but from the morale of the characters, the tone, just how bad did it get? How did we get here? It's like the Pacific Rim thing. Hey, we had 30 Jaegers in this hangar, we're down to 3. How did it get this bad? So, so we get to see that, but with the X-Men, and it really, really shone through in a way that I didn't think they'd be able to nail. given that they took a title from the comics that's fantastic. So I think that's what really shined about the movie, not to go a little too ranty, but that was the thing that made the movie really great for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm definitely on board with all of that. I think I could go into specifics of filmmaking to point out about this movie of why I think it's good, but I wanna hone in on I'll say 3 out of 4 of these X-Men reboot series: First Class, Days of Future Past, Apocalypse, and to a degree Dark Phoenix. I'm not going to have a specific one for that, but each of these movies in the quote-unquote trilogy has a perfect scene to me that is just exemplifies why mutants and the X-Men are primed for film. In First Class, it's the Magneto. If Magneto Origins had been a film, it is the Quentin Tarantino Nazis in a Venezuela bar scene where he walks in and kills those guys. That scene's perfect. Like, that could function as a short film, and you wouldn't question it.
We were robbed of that Magneto origin film.
I agree a little bit there.
I mean, let's be honest. Let's be honest. It was his performance in *Inglourious Basterds* that probably got him the role of young Magneto.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
Yeah, that was the reason that people
just the irony of mentioning Tarantino.
Right.
Yeah.
And then in Apocalypse, the scene is again a Michael Fassbender scene. It's the killing of his family by the police.
Yeah.
That scene is tonally just perfection for what X-Men is capable of being. In this movie, however, we get, and we were talking about this while we were watching the movie, the scene where young Professor X, young Charles, is talking to old Charles through temporal mutant magic. Can you imagine showing up on set the day that James McAvoy is going to talk to Patrick Stewart, two of the best British actors alive today, both Shakespearean trained, and they need to show up and exemplify what if you could encourage your past self. Holy shit. Like that.
To add one little tiny gem to that statement, while playing Professor Charles Xavier, both of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the most famous disabled superheroes, and they're playing this. Yeah, just that scene in isolation is. I love the MCU. I don't think they've reached that emotional depth. To me,
not at all. No.
I mean, everyone. The most emotional scene we could all point to is Infinity War, where everybody gets dusted. But that was more just shocking than it was like.
I would actually argue.
I mean, to be fair though, like timeline-wise, I was like 14 years in the X-Men world before we got to that scene.
I would argue.
Yeah, that's true.
I would actually.
So 2000 to 2014.
I would actually argue the penultimate emotional payoff scene has nothing to do with Endgame or the Avengers. I would argue the best payoff we've had in an MCU film, just to put a plug here, Guardians of the Galaxy 2, Yondu.
Oh yeah.
They pulled
Yeah.
that string so hard, and the build up to it wasn't nearly as long, but the payoff was just you felt it.
Yeah.
True.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
For everybody that hates Guardians 2, it's got some really good scenes.
It does have some really good scenes, and overall, I hate the movie, but it still paid off.
I'm on the opposite. I love
that movie.
I respect other people's
I hate
opinions.
Ego. I hate Ego as Magic Space Planet, but whatever. Anyway.
Oh
yeah. I can. The film was still great. I can ignore that.
Sci-fi plot
Right.
C.
Yeah. I
get
could get away from that. Anyway, sorry to detract.
Anyways, no. This is good conversation. I really like pointing out that for the detractors against like cape films, for lack of a better term, people would say that these are not cinema, these are roller coaster rides, XYZ. And I think most of the time...
I was going to say one person said it. Come on.
Well,
I mean,
a lot of people
agreed.
agreed.
I mean, let's be honest. He's not wrong. They are kind of roller coaster rides, but
I think 90% of the time... Yeah, 90% of the time they're not wrong, but that 10% is where you get James McAvoy and Patrick Stewart
Yeah,
who have not crossed paths in any other films.
yeah. Or you get films like Logan, where it's totally
Yeah.
unique.
Yep.
It's got nominated for
Yeah.
a best Oscar for best adapted screenplay. Like
Yeah,
the recognition of that film will resonate forever.
exactly.
And
Yeah.
have I even said, like, the best thing that I can come up with is you can tell when a studio makes film and when a director makes film.
Yep.
And the best example is watch The Wolverine and then watch Logan. Both same director, but they feel like two completely different films. Like, you could see like what he was trying to do with the Wolverine, but Logan was like all mangled. Especially if you watch
Yeah.
something like his remake of 3:10 to Yuma,
Yeah.
and then watch Logan. It's like, oh yeah, that's James Mangold.
Totally.
The first half of the
So-
Wolverine was James Mangold, and the second half was the studio because the Silver Samurai needs to be a giant robot. So fucking dumb.
As far as other positives, is there anything any of you guys want to mention offhandedly before we go into negatives?
Hugh Jackman is in amazing shape.
No.
Jacked
Sorry,
man.
sorry,
Yes.
sorry. You pronounced his name wrong. It's jacked human.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
That works too.
Yeah, but I will say it is I even pointed this out today. It's extraordinarily unrealistic
Oh yeah.
because he even
Oh, yeah.
said like when he did that scene, they filmed until about 2:00, and then he went back to his trailer and he passed out because he hadn't had any water in like 2.5 days.
Right.
Well, it's like in the Wolverine 2 when he did the fight with Hiroyuki Sanada, where he said that he's trying to dodge that prop sword, and he's having like major headaches. He's getting very wobbly. Looks great, but he's just like super dehydrated just to get that ripped look.
Let's be aware that that's not what a human being should ever look like. No person should ever look like that.
Mutant, sure,
And-
but not a human.
And compare that to how good he looks at the end of the movie in that black T-shirt. Just like very simple costuming. He's like well fed and watered, and he
And water. He's a plant.
yeah he looks like a superhuman still, but he looks so
Yeah.
healthy in that scene compared to lava lamp sex scene, and you're like, oh God, are you
Yeah.
okay?
He actually started to work his legs
Right.
because if you look at the previous films, he was skipping leg day.
Oh man.
He looks so. I think there was like somebody like Jimmy Fallon pointed out like on an episode of one of his show where they did a Photoshop version of his him doing a deadlift and they just made his legs really really tiny.
So
Yeah, he would usually skip leg day, but thankfully he decided to do it for this film.
I had
Kinda
a,
had to.
Yeah, he kind of had to.
I had a moment there when somebody mentioned Hugh Jackman as a plant. I'm sitting there. What do plants crave? Electrolytes.
Yeah.
Oh,
Electrolytes.
Jesus.
I like you, Aaron.
Thank you.
Also,
So
Jennifer Lawrence is really good back when she still gave a shit.
Yes.
yeah,
Yep.
Remember when she cared?
Yes, I do. And it
Yeah.
shows. Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
there's diminishing benefits to 5 hours in a makeup chair to do a character like that.
Yeah.
100%.
I still believe if we could give Alan Cumming an infinite amount of money to come back as Nightcrawler, that would be okay. But he will never do
Oh
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
He like I don't hate the new kid that's
No, the
playing
new
him.
kid's
I mean,
great.
I don't think he's gonna play him anymore. But you know, that's
Yeah.
not my decision. But yeah, is it Cumming or Cumming?
Coming.
Okay, well, whatever.
Either way.
Yeah, it's that word.
Either
Either
way.
way, his best film, not GoldenEye. His best film, not X2. His best film, believe it or not, if you've never seen it, is
Son of the Mask.
oh God, get the fuck out.
Shut up.
Oh
Spy
God.
Kids. It's Spy
Well,
Kids.
So episode canceled. We pissed off the guest. He's leaving now. I'm kidding.
If anybody could do it, it's me.
No.
You say that like we wouldn't carry on
Right,
without
right.
you.
No, you would. Yeah, no, I'm the new guy. Get the fuck out of here. No, the best movie, if you've never seen it, that he's ever been in, actually, is called Gray Matters, and it stars Heather Graham.
Oh
I
yeah.
feel
it's
like
a
I
big-
Yeah,
have
Gray
seen
Matters
that.
was great.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing about Alan Cumming is that he's definitely like your quintessential character actor, so he can like kind of swoop into the best and the worst of films,
Yeah.
and still
I
come away
love
unscathed.
the scene where he figures out the girl that he super likes is a lesbian. He's like, okay, well, we can still be friends. And he just laughs it off. He's like, oh, well, that's disappointing.
There you go.
When did Chasing Amy come out and it didn't have that same amount of nuance? I guess it was a decade between them.
Yeah,
Oh, well.
no, that movie was 2006-ish. I was working at Blockbuster when
Yeah.
when that came out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
This is totally unrelated to X-Men. Did you keep track of like what the most stolen films were while you worked there? Like not returned or totally just like janked movies?
There was definitely a list. Yeah, why?
I'm asking because I worked at Best Buy shortly thereafter of your tenure at Blockbuster, and our most stolen film was Dark Knight Rises, and I don't know why.
Great movie, nobody wants to pay for it, would be my answer. No, it was largely anything in the discounted section where we were selling stuff,
bargain bin stuff.
Right, where it was like 4 for $20 or whatever on DVDs and Blu-rays and some other stuff. But mostly it was people at the time. Keep in mind, this was when I worked there the second time was 2009 or whatever. So Blu-rays were still kind of expensive. So it was literally any Blu-ray somebody would try and grab. But the one that I found most stolen, and we had to replace the most, was actually this retelling of Bonnie and Clyde, involving African-American couple kind of from like, I don't know if it was LA or New York, but a downtrodden area. And I can't remember what it's called, but the film is fantastic. And for some reason, we had 3 copies of it stolen or not returned at all. And I think that was because it was so good, but it was also so hard to find. So it's not like I could fault people.
Weird.
I know it's not Queen and Slim because that came out last
No,
year. But
no.
Oh, yeah.
It must have been like a
It's
reinterpretation.
I'd say a name, but then somebody would probably accuse me of being insensitive. I want to say it's something in Tanisha or something in Toya. It's something. It's loosely in my mind for some reason. I'm drawing an R and a T for the names.
Okay.
To the interwebs.
Yeah. So it came out circa 2007, 2008-ish, and I've seen it, and it's fantastic. The other one that never was returned was actually a movie one of Bob Marley's kids stars in called Shot Us. It's a Jamaican crime film, and it is really good.
Oh.
Yeah, so those 2 went missing the most, mostly because we only had 1 copy of each, and they were both stellar films. People just didn't return them, and usually, and it's not like they stole them, like they didn't pay the fee. I think most times they actually paid the fee off and just kept it.
Well then,
I forgot that was an option. Redbox still does that too. If
So,
you just keep it for a certain amount of time, it's yours.
So if you had to ask me which were the 2 that went missing the most, the ones we had 1 copy of that people really liked.
Interesting. I mean, makes sense. We're about halfway in through the first segment. Unless there's any other positives, I'd like to touch or dip our toes into the negatives for a minute.
Or wait, is this my route?
Has any? No. Your pitch will start after we take a break.
Okay. I've never done this before. Sorry, bear with me.
Hey, that's fine. It's my 100th time.
Oh my God, get it right! How dare you! No, you're good. You're good.
So this is the part where I hold up a peace sign and then my thumb to signal 3, and we all die in the bar.
There you go. Okay, great reference.
Nice. That's pretty good. Pretty good.
And it's Michael Fassbender. Ha cha 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 cha.
Back when Fassbender was doing good films.
Hey. He was doing good films before that.
He needs a...
No.
True.
This was like
That's
one
what
of the
we're
last.
saying.
This is one of the I think the one that came after this that was still pretty good was 12 Years a Slave, which was a last minute recast for him.
When did Shameless come out?
After that, he's
or Shame?
You mean Shame?
Yeah, thank you.
Shame was like 2011.
Oh man, it's
Brandon.
been a minute. Okay, never mind.
Yeah.
And nobody saw it because it was NC-17.
Yeah, but it was
nobody saw
still.
it.
Got all these Golden Globe noms. Oscars.
I was
going to
say it
touch
was
Yeah,
still
of course it didn't.
fantastic. I don't care.
Yeah. It's like, you can see his penis. We're not gonna get that movie any awards.
It should have
He
gotten
did do-
awards. It was written beautifully, acted beautifully.
Well, his penis.
It was.
His penis should have gotten the awards. Jesus Christ.
That's what George Clooney said too. George Clooney said, "It's like, I saw Shame, dude. You can play golf with that." Clooney on stage saying this, and
I mean,
Fassbender's
if
like,
you're
"Oh my
gonna
God."
if you're
make
gonna
this-
give somebody an
Reminds me of,
award for anything in any movie, I'm gonna cite Bronson.
Willem Dafoe.
Bronson, yeah.
On a
Well,
more...
reminds me of Last Temptation of Christ when Willem Dafoe is crucified on the cross and his cock fell out of his shorts, and Scorsese leaned over and said, is that props department or animal wrangling? It's that big.
On a more
You did hear the story of Antichrist, though, Lars von Trier's film, how he needed a double because he was like, yeah, no, that's too big for the character. We need a double.
on a more professional note,
Okay.
on
sorry.
a more professional note, immediately after Days of Future Past, he did Slow West, Macbeth, and Steve Jobs, is what I'd like to point out here.
Macbeth.
Okay, he did some good ones.
Macbeth
Okay, he did
No
some
more,
good ones.
But
no more cock talk.
when did The Snowman come out? Was that 2018?
That was
No, that
2017.
2017.
Oh.
Yeah.
So I'm not
Oy.
gonna.
I saw that in the theater.
So I'm not gonna talk about cocks, but I got
I am
a
so sorry.
tiny related thing to this, right? So. Oh, I didn't even mean to say that. Wow. Okay.
Aaron, welcome
I'm
to
not
the
even
Film
drunk for
Rescue
this
Show.
one.
This is the most real.
She says it's average. Now I know better. No.
I spit my drink.
No, due to the coronavirus, right? So the cost of eating out has gone up, right? So they've renamed the 69 the 96.
Jesus.
God damn it.
Okay, I'm done.
There's our stinger for the episode, Seth.
Let me make a note.
Jesus.
I'd like to talk about the negatives of the movie
Sure,
for the podcast
sure.
today.
Sorry.
God.
You never know what a guest is gonna be like. I love when they come in guns blazing, and I can't control this
Nick,
shit,
okay,
dude. Like I'm in my
serious-
basement. Nobody's
Serious
together.
moment.
Time is a flat circle. We're stuck in hell.
Yeah, serious moment. Negatives of the movie. No, Michael Fassbender cock. No negatives of the movie. I would put forth the first one. I guess it's not a negative. It's what we're used to, though. But I consider it a negative because you had the opportunity. And I'm trying to be serious here. You had the opportunity with this ensemble film to pull a little bit away from Wolverine, and we did. We did
Sure.
with him being knocked into the water at the end of the film. But he's a plot point. He's the center character. That's been done so many times, and you had the opportunity to go away from it. Not that it's a negative of the film, and doesn't make it any worse. It was just kind of like a missed opportunity. It's not even one of the ones that I brought up in the rewrite. It's just kind of like we've seen the Wolverine show, and this was the chance to do not the Wolverine show. But I mean, I guess that's not
Right.
really a negative of the movie. That's I can't even think of one.
Well, he literally only berserk modes like 3 times, and they're not important to the plot. It's just to get him out of situations.
Is that really a negative?
Well, I say that because if you're going to make him your center character, it should be related to the things that he's capable of doing, besides his brain hasn't rotted since the 70s. That basically is what the film says, is, hey, you haven't aged because your cells regenerate, and therefore you can go into your 70s brain. And he fights off the guys in his hotel room, and then he punches 2 guards in the Pentagon, and then he fights a sentinel for a second and realizes he has bone claws and they're useless, and then he just yeets out of the movie.
Yeah.
I guess I understand why. I mean, Hugh Jackman is, cinema gold. He's going to bring people in. He's a big leading man. But if you're doing Days of Future Past from the comics, there's no reason why Kitty Pryde couldn't still have been the person to be sent to the past, especially if you're going to make the time-traveling character kind of backdrop.
Yeah. Why can't she just phase herself to the past?
I don't even think her
Well, she's
powers
different.
work that way.
No, they don't. They don't. But they needed to keep Kitty because in the book it's a Kitty Pryde storyline.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
because their excuse is, well, Wolverine was looks the same age in the past as he does in the future, just with a little gray hair in the future. They
Right.
figured, well, he's the catalyst for the story. It works.
Yeah, I know.
But they still wanted to keep Kitty Pryde as part of the story somehow.
Yeah.
So I understand it, I get it, but it still feels like they could have found a better excuse.
It
And
definitely.
I've said before that Kitty Pryde, like Ellen Page, is probably in this movie because of contractual obligation. She really didn't like being in X-Men
Yeah.
3 at all, but because she was probably under contract to do another film, she probably just had to do it anyways.
Well, and this is probably me reaching, and this is the most I'll reach on this episode until we're talking about dicks again eventually. I know it's going to happen. I'm just setting you up for failure. Imagine being Ellen Page, who's a leader of the LGBT community, and her character is assigned the girlfriend of the gay X-Men. Like, Bobby Drake is gay in the comics. That's canon.
Well, that happened after the film
to be okay. Well, it's sort of canon, and I could explain why it's also not canon, but that's a comic thing.
Sure.
It's all like whatever.
Comics are weird. I get it. But
the long and short of it is Bobby Drake couldn't figure out, like, the main timeline one didn't want to deal with being gay and being a mutant while he was being prejudiced for both, so he just stopped being gay, and the young rewrite version from a different timeline in a time that's more progressive could do both. That's it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and hey, that's, I mean, X-Men comics are about racism. Let's not paint around the numbers here. There's a reason these were made the way they were. So I can imagine her behest to not want to be put in that position. But, and that's a big asterisk, but you can have a female-led movie that makes money, especially with an ensemble like this, I guess is my, not even a negative, it's just like a, come on, guys, we can do this, I promise.
Also, comics, Shadowcat is religiously boning Colossus, so.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they got married in the comics. I think they have kids as well.
Yeah.
So it's like, by the way, well, here's a negative. All the future characters, aside from the main cast that we already know, are terrible.
And pointless.
Colossus has zero personality. Blink and Bishop do nothing. Sunspot has no personality at all.
Warpath.
They're just there for action scenes.
Oh, they're represented terribly, is what you're saying. They're not.
Yeah,
terrible.
They're not they're not. Like, Warpath's powers were toned down so much for the film. Colossus's powers, Sunspot's powers. They're backdrop characters so that we have. I mean, not to call it a horror movie moment, but basically they are there to die to show the dire situation they're in, and that is it.
Yep.
I mean, we didn't get Colossus with the personality until the Deadpool films.
Yeah.
True.
And even then, like, the Colossus we have in these films he's not Russian.
Yeah.
Whereas the one we got in Deadpool finally is Russian. That's why I don't count the Deadpool movies as X-Men movies, because that's clearly a different Colossus.
You want to hear something funny about that? That guy was cast a week before they finished production. In post.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Not only, on two fronts. Physically, they had another stand-in actor in green screen. They cast him. They couldn't find a good Colossus. He was cast a week before they were supposed to finalize all final editing, and they did it in a week for his voice actor, and his physical actor got the same guy and got all of that wrapped up in under 7 days, and he did so good.
Holy shit.
Oh, if you were talking about Cox right now, mine would be hard for how good the Colossus is for how little time they had. That's, to be fair, that's movie magic.
No, you're not wrong. I mean, what was that? All the Money in the World they reshot to get Kevin Spacey out of it in like a week.
Yeah, but
holy shit.
Well,
Christopher Plummer.
He's still slightly in that film, Kevin Spacey, for long distance shots because they couldn't get the location again. So all the shots you see of Christopher Plummer are just the close-ups because that's all they had the space to shoot. But,
I mean,
and then when you see the footage comparison with what leaked out through the trailer, it's like, why didn't you just go with him to begin with? Like, Spacey in that old age makeup just looks ridiculous by comparison.
Yeah. Wait,
it's like what? No, why?
Wait, Aaron, you broke us. We're talking about other movies during the negative section, and this is usually our like pie eating contest. What the fuck?
I think it's because we don't hate this one.
No, we
that
don't
might
hate
be
this
why.
one. Like, we collectively agree it's a good film. There's some problems. There's some issues. Like, I guess the big negative is the temporality of the film. The time frame doesn't quite match. It doesn't quite sync up.
It's tricky.
It's messy. It's a messy, like, it's a time travel storyline. It's not. There's no real rules to follow because, like, you're literally you're projecting a person's personality from the future into their past body. Is like, how the fuck does that even work?
What happens? So
like,
wait a minute.
It's just magic.
it's movie magic again. So wait a minute. What happened?
Magic.
What
Yeah,
happens to previous consciousness of Wolverine since he's rewriting himself? Does he just delete it?
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, it's like it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's not important. That's not the point.
No, I know.
And I was watching this with roommates, and someone pointed out that the reason that the temporality is like a 1-to-1, the minutes passing in the future are the same as the minutes passing in the past, is because you've got this link between them with Wolverine. His body is in one place, his consciousness is in another, and it's forcing the temporality to sync up in parallel as compared to fully sending someone totally into the past would totally unwrite the future. There would be no sync up. Again, this is me defending things the movie didn't say, which is very on brand for me, but it helped me make sense of it a little bit, especially at the end when it's ticking clock, everything, like they have lasers coming at their heads while the final decision that changes Mystique is being made.
Yeah.
It helps it make sense, I guess.
I guess the only other negative I can really think of is when you look at the future, right? It's only shown from the mutants' perspective, and for some reason it looks like the future of Earth from the Matrix. Where are the people who are benefiting from the Sentinels wiping out mutants? Like, it just doesn't look like humanity's alive anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, it's so bad humans lost. Wait, what?
It's more the Terminator than anything else.
It's Terminator.
Yeah, it's Terminator. Like, they even had that shot of the
Jinx.
They even had that shot going across
the skull
all
piles.
the human
Yeah.
skulls. Yeah, They even had
Yeah.
that.
Oh yeah.
And there's that cameo from Cable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, that was Cable?
Oh yeah.
That's Cable.
Ew.
Yeah, I know. They got a better
Yeah.
Cable in Deadpool too. Like I said.
Whatever.
Yeah, we did.
better.
Whatever. Okay.
My major negative, I think the only thing that really bugged me offensively throughout this movie is this movie really needs computers to be a thing and really goes out of its way to make computers not a thing to only just make them a thing.
Yeah.
My evidence to present to the court is Beast scans the 4 public channels
Yeah.
with some kind of not computer from the 70s to find out about this thing happening in DC. As if that wouldn't have just been newsworthy.
Yeah.
They
It's
ha-
like
they-
you have this amazing technology and you're not sharing it with anybody. Really?
They have to search the non-internet to find that. But they also have Cerebro in the basement with a fully computerized "Welcome, Professor X" computer voice.
Yeah.
that-
Why the fuck do you even need to have that weird TV scanning device at all? Anyways,
And
you
then,
have Cerebro.
And then they go out of their way to show the Sentinel vision, which I get. Like the whole like the text of mutant looks exactly like a video game.
Yeah.
But they have binary rolling down the side. Hey guys, it's
Yeah.
not quite the 80s yet.
Yeah. They don't
Where
have
the fuck
binary
did
code.
that come from?
Yeah, there's a negative. The Sentinels, they look fucking terrible. I've said this
Oh,
before.
man.
They look
Just-
like Tonka blocks.
Just do them right. Do the Sentinels
that's,
right.
That's in my rewrites thing, and there's a reason behind that, but I won't.
Yeah, they needed to have. They say there's only 10 prototypes available. It's like, well, what built the prototypes? Like, this movie needed to have a master mold.
Jesus built them.
You know, what is it that built them? Master mold.
Yeah,
Like,
I cover.
you need an early master mold.
I go into that.
A giant creepy crawler
I
says.
go into that. I got that
Yeah.
covered.
Yeah,
The only other negative I can think of is that there's a small niggling things that bother me. I said Mystique changes into Bolivar Trask, and I'm like, wait a minute, Bolivar Trask is 3 feet shorter than she is.
yeah.
It's like a whatever kind of thing, but it's
Well-
it just bothered me.
He's also 3 feet shorter and a different race than his character in the previous
Yes.
X-Men movies.
Yeah, they've changed him 3 or 4 times.
I don't.
Yeah. Other things, I've said that the slow-mo kitchen scene probably inspired the slow-mo shootout in Legion
Yeah.
from season 1. But it's not really a negative. It's more like, hey, you took your inspiration from somewhere.
Yeah.
You haven't seen Legion yet, Brandon. So
I haven't seen Legion yet either.
I have not.
Oh,
Legion's
so good.
great.
So good. It's not. It's an
I fall
X-Men.
behind on TV shows pretty hard.
It's an X-Men show only by association by one of the characters' names. Everything else is totally different.
Yeah.
That's what I
It's-
thought.
It's barely even X-Men.
To be fair, though, given what Legion can do in the comics, that's actually warranted and okay.
Yeah. Well, he creates a separate reality in the show.
Yeah.
And
That's the point. He has that ability.
he has more than that ability in the comics.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Other things like something I noticed: Nixon, a very disliked president, is forced into a bunker to avoid a riot. You bunker bitch!
Hey-o!
How does this show get to be topical every week?
Yeah, of course. Also, the other thing that kind of bothered me, this is like a complaint about the sequels, but the end where it's revealed that Stryker on the boat is actually Mystique in disguise, that was never followed up on in the sequels.
No.
Oh, no.
No, they totally abandoned
I've
that.
got...
Which is weird. It's like it's the same writer and directors for the sequel. Why would you not follow
I've
up
actually
on that?
got a whole plethora of things from first cast to this one to the next one that don't have continuity as part of my what the shits. So.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And killing off, like, the major cast members from First Class, like Angel's dead, Azazel's dead. Like, why? Like, why? Why?
We're touching into the stuff that I
know. I'm sure your pitch has those things, but like this current film, like this film rewrote its own continuity within its continuity.
It did, and then it rewrote the ones after it by not going into stuff. Yeah, no, it does both.
Each of these movies just kind of says "fuck you" to the previous film
and the future film.
Yeah. The only ones that don't are like Deadpool, where they're just kind of like, yeah, we're in our own separate world right now.
The great
Jesse, you pointed it out last night. They avoided the apocalypse in this for Logan to just have its own apocalypse.
Yeah, like Logan saves the world from a future apocalypse in 2020 just to have another apocalypse in 2017.
Yeah.
Or in 2030.
It's almost like...
Yeah.
It's like, I know some like time travel films are like, no matter what you do to change things, you will still lead to a certain fate. I mean, in the case of Logan, it's kind of like what Aaron was saying. It's like, okay, so if the Sentinels were supposed to go after the mutants, why does it look like everything's been demolished? And Logan, it's, oh shit, the mutants have been wiped out and the humans are still around.
Yeah.
Or there's like a very select few mutants left. Like, I feel like that's probably a more realistic interpretation of what, a minimal mutant world would be after the event. So it's like, yeah, he managed to save some things, but he still kind of got screwed over. So it's like, no matter what you do to try to change something, like, your fate is still sealed.
Well, even
much.
like Logan
that
is
kind of
like,
thing.
it's a film where it's apocalyptic only in the way they filmed it. Like, they said, like, oh, there's all these buildings that are falling apart and collapsing, and James Mangold said, no, we just went around and just filmed America's crumbling infrastructure. Like, this is just America now. Like, this is just us. Like, we're in the apocalypse. It wasn't being filmed.
Yeah.
That's just it. Like, we're at that point, and now we're, like, all in quarantine.
And when does Logan take place? Like, 2026, 2027?
Yeah, it's like 2027 or something like that. But yeah, it's basically just
like they wanted to make it far enough away from Days of Future Past just in case.
Wait,
which is weird. It's like
what?
in the ending of Days of Future Past, there's fucking holograms all over the place, and then Logan is like, no, none of that shit.
Like it could be, but we're just not going to show it.
So it. Oh, never mind.
Go ahead.
No. Like, we're going down the apocalypse pathway, and then it just sparked a thought about the movie Apocalypse.
Oh yeah, Apocalypse as in the end of the world, not
no. But we were talking about how the previous film fucks the future one up pretty badly.
Oh yeah.
What you might not be aware of, and I didn't know if it would even come up in topic, but what you might not be aware of is actually Dark Phoenix wasn't even supposed to be made. It was actually supposed to be. And it's the teaser at the end of Apocalypse, just like at the end of Days of Future Past, we had the Apocalypse teaser. Did you guys even catch what the Apocalypse teaser was?
I did. He built.
Where he's assembling the pyramids.
No, he built the pyramids in a minute.
No. Sorry, the teaser at the end of the movie Apocalypse.
Oh,
these
at the Wolverine at the Project
Sinister,
X
whatever
facility.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I forgot about that.
No. It was no. Just hear me out. Just hear me out.
Fucking, I'm going to YouTube. God damn it.
Okay, so it's. I'll tell you what it is. Just hang on. It's a guy carrying the briefcase, right? And he's going in to collect the stuff of Wolverine breaking out. Yada yada yada. He's carrying a briefcase that says Essex on it.
Yeah.
Now, if you take the movie and separate all the genetic fuckery that Apocalypse is known for and just turn him into a super mutant, and then Nathaniel Essex, aka Mr. Sinister, is supposed to be the genetic experiment guy, the movie we were supposed to get was Pierce Brosnan as fucking Mr. Sinister in the next one. We never got it.
Yeah.
Oops.
Also, there was like rumors that they were going to do X-Man, which is Nathan Summers, not Cable, but the... Oh, okay, so comics are fucking weird. if you're listening to this, I cannot explain the fuckery that is X-Men genealogy.
I can.
Basically,
Oy.
Jean Grey and Cyclops had a kid, and in some versions he turns into Cable, kinda, and in other versions he turns into X-Man, Nathan Summers, who is cool, also cheesy, depending on how you feel about the 90s. And he and Mr. Sinister have a fucking ordeal. I love misexplaining comics because it makes them funnier to me. But yeah, so all of that happened, and I guess that was going to be the next movie. And instead, Simon Kinberg was like, nah, I want to try Dark Phoenix again and be bad at it.
Yeah, so the things that were set up were not even followed up on. And so we were just talking about the continuity between these movies, how they seem to simultaneously fuck the predecessor and the next ones.
Well,
Right.
they're getting to the point where they're gonna start wedging in the X-Men into the MCU. Like, I think it was just recently announced that Beyonce has been cast in Black Panther 2.
Nope.
Is it a rumor?
Nope. That was debunked.
Oh, thank
that was
God.
debunked fast.
Thank God.
Yeah, no, they're saying that they're allegedly looking more into like lesser known actresses, which I think would be smart. I mean, I know they went with Halle Berry, who was already pretty well known at the time back in 2000, but yeah, I think like some of the rumors I've seen for like the lesser known actresses definitely look more the part. Like I saw someone post, I think it was from like 2018 though, so obviously that's not going to be a thing, but I know several actresses were like, yeah, I want to be Storm, and everyone I've seen so far, it's like, yes, I want all of them instead of Beyonce, because I too have seen the pseudo live action remake of The Lion King. I want somebody other than Beyonce as Storm.
Has Boss Logic just changed the course of American history?
I think he does.
So-
yeah, but there's also rumors that Rogue is going to be in Captain Marvel 2, which I guess makes sense.
So funny.
Yeah.
That I have heard,
that I've
but
heard
yeah.
too. So funny story. If they're looking for not well-known actresses to play Storm, technically they could go back to Halle Berry.
No, she's too
Oh
old.
shit!
Wow.
Shots fired.
She was just in John Wick Chapter 3. Fuck off.
Yeah, and what was she in for 6 years prior to that? Like nothing.
Oh no, those WWE movies is
Right.
what she was in.
Right. Yeah. No, that's.
Oh,
yeah,
God,
that's
I
what I'm
forgot
saying
about
when I
that.
say lesser-known actress. But
It's funny because literally her character comes out of retirement in John Wick 3, and it was like, oh, I get it. It's a meta narrative.
just like John Wick came out of retirement in the first one.
Yeah.
There you go.
Also, Keanu Reeves came out of retirement to do those. Yeah, get it? Movies are
Yeah.
fun.
Did you guys see the deleted scene
Jesus.
where apparently Logan and Storm had a thing?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
No.
it was
Well,
a deleted scene. Apparently, it was a drop subplot.
Jesse, no, it's not a deleted scene. It's called Swordfish.
What?
Oh
Oh,
Jesus Christ.
Because Halle Berry and Hugh Jackman have a thing in Swordfish, remember?
Oh, that's
barely.
right. Isn't Swordfish?
So we got a pitch for this, or what?
Isn't Swordfish on the chopping block for next season?
Oh man, I hope so.
Fuck.
I mean, we should be able to pitch our own stuff again too. So Seth, do Swordfish.
Deal.
I haven't seen that in 20 years.
Deal.
pros of that movie: explosives plus ball bearings. What?
Or hacking blowjob.
No, pros of that movie, Halle Berry,
Topless.
my sexual floweration that happened through it.
She was paid $100,000 for
I
that.
thought it was 1.2 million.
Oh,
Was it $1 million?
I thought for that scene alone, she got like an
Yeah,
extra half
something
million,
crazy.
like
It was
that.
it was a
Jesus.
lot.
The numbers flex
Yeah.
around as to what it was in totality, and when she's asked about it, she says the smart thing for any actress would do is that, and she never confirms, so it's kind of tongue-in-cheek, and I love it. Brandon, do you have any sour notes to Days of Future Past as I try to rein in this
Sorry.
podcast back to where we were going? No apologies
I mean,
needed, just I'm
This will
doing
definitely
it.
get a Patreon cut.
I mean, in all honesty, much like whenever we have a more of a trudge film to go through and we struggle for the positives. This is one where I feel like the more people have already listed their negatives, it's kind of difficult to like pull out anything new. Like I feel like we've touched upon like what negatives this film actually has. You know, the convoluted time travel via, you know, sending consciousness back, you know, some conveniences with the ending. You know, it's like I love the fact that it retcons the shittier moments of the X-Men franchise out, but then it's like, does that mean that we get to keep the good ones too, or do we lose those as well? It's one of those things where you're not too sure. It's like it's almost like getting to an X-Men buffet. It's like I'm only going to pick out the things I like,
Pretty
and those
sure
are
you
going to be
just
the things
lose
that
everything.
remain in this new world. Yeah, that's the tricky thing. I mean, we do see him back at, you know, the school for the gifted, and it's like, oh, Cyclops is alive again, Jean Grey's alive again, Beast is once again Frasier, you know, all these things. So
That might be the best save
but
of
yeah,
all
so
time.
I mean, like I didn't hate Kelsey Grammer
loved him
as
as
Beast in
Beast.
X-Men 3.
That's the
I
reason-
didn't. It's weird, but you know,
Do you think he enjoys
mind
tossed
it.
salad and scrambled eggs?
I don't know.
God damn it.
coming again.
So there's a
Thank you.
reason X-Men 3 will never hit my bottom 3 for X-Men movies, and it's him.
Oh
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's fair.
That is my
And now we have Dark Phoenix too, so
Hey,
it makes it a
that
little
one's
more.
not
Oh,
going to
yeah.
hit my bottom 3 either.
there.
What's your bottom 3 now?
Okay.
I'm curious.
Yeah, me too.
Oh man. Oh boy.
Origins.
You've put yourself in a corner now.
It's
You took out
obviously,
two.
obviously the bottom one's easy to list. The one
Okay.
where Deadpool doesn't have a fucking mouth.
Oh yeah, Origins. Yeah,
yeah,
deal.
Origins. Yeah,
That's fine.
Well, that
we did
definitely
that
should be in the
No, I
bottom
know.
That's
3.
fine.
Yeah. That we can agree with. But what are the other two, if not Dark Phoenix and
X-Men
X-Men 3?
3 I liked. Dark Phoenix, I think it's fine. It really, well, I mean, there's things wrong with it, obviously, but the fact that it's not a Mr. Sinister movie is my biggest
Right.
hold up. I think
Fair
in
enough.
terms
It's
of if you're
barely
looking at the
functional.
whole series, believe it or not, I have to throw the original under the bus as one of the bottom 3 because it doesn't hold up over time. That's the only thing. That's the only thing wrong with it. We got, okay, at the time it came out, it was the greatest. We didn't have comic book movies, right?
product
Yeah,
of its time.
yeah.
Product of its time.
Well, no, we had Blade. We had Blade prior to that.
Yep.
Yeah, Blade's the one that people tend to overlook. I think it's because everybody knew X-Men, but
Right.
not everybody knew Blade.
Yeah.
But if it wasn't for
We had
Blade,
Spider-Man.
I think they would have been like,
Oh no, shortly
Yeah.
after that.
Well, that
Shortly
was
after.
after
No, that was
Yeah,
after.
that
shortly,
was
shortly
after.
yeah,
thereafter.
two
So
years later.
I think it only hits my bottom 3 at the top end of it, or it's tied with, I guess, Last Stand. I don't consider either one of them particularly terrible. I don't know. Last Stand's plot was terrible. Everything else was fine.
I mean, to be fair, I can't say anything personal about Dark Phoenix yet because I've yet to force myself to watch it. In fact, that is the only X-Men film or even X-Men related film
I think-
that I
I
did not
think,
see in theaters. I've seen
truthfully-
every other one, including the
Truthfully,
Deadpool films.
I tucked the 2 Wolverine ones at the back. Believe it or not. Or, sorry. Wolverine Origins and The Wolverine I tuck in the back. Not that Wolverine wasn't it was a good action movie. It just wasn't as far as it being a Wolverine story, they cut out his powers. He had to rely on, like, it was, you could have done a Hugh Jackman movie and taped knives to his hand and still done effectively the same thing because he doesn't heal. I mean, he's the title character and he's fighting ninjas and he's doing Wolverine things, don't get me wrong, but he doesn't heal, and I don't know. It was a great movie. It just wasn't a good Wolverine movie, which is why I'm like,
I think I don't know if I could stack them objectively right now, but if on a like gun to my head, X-Men Origins Wolverine is the Phantom Menace of this series.
Yes.
And Dark Phoenix is the Rise of Skywalker. Like
Yeah.
I disagree. I
haven't
disagree
seen
with both
either
of
yet.
those. But if I had a bottom 3, final answer. Seriously, I would go. Gun to my head. Wolverine Origins, The Wolverine, and
Deadpool 2.
no. Are we counting Deadpool movies? I was just going X-Men
If
movies.
you want to, because
I'm in the minority. I like Deadpool
I
too. I'm
loved
weird. I don't
Deadpool
know.
2. I would go Deadpool 1. I would go
I had fun with
Deadpool
it.
1. Really. Before I would go Last Stand, Apocalypse, or Dark Phoenix, I would go Deadpool 1. And the reason is, just hear me out. It's funny. Don't get me wrong. I love
I'm working
the
on it.
movie. I love the movie. It's funny. watch it again, it's really hard to enjoy a second time around. I think Deadpool 2 does a better job of, like, you can watch it a second time and you it's still funny. The first one, funny once. Don't get me, like, the penultimate scene in that movie is him counting down the bullets on the highway.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
true.
sit through the rest of the movie again, and it trudges on a little bit. I mean, there's a little bit of a high point during the Deadpool sexy motherfucker montage where he's got like the Zamboni, and he's like, and then he's fighting the Asian girl. It's like, do I hit you? Do I not hit you?
You're about
I don't know
be
what to
killed
do.
by a Zamboni.
Tell me where your fucking boss is, or you're gonna die in 10
5 minutes
from a Zamboni. Okay, so aside from like those moments that you remember, go back and watch the rest of the 90 minutes, and it feels really slow. Like the pacing and the comedy isn't there. Like they tried to do a dramatic thing with him turning into Deadpool and stuff, and it actually, watch it again, it trudges out. It's slow as fuck and unenjoyable. I tried going back to it in the theater twice, like the first week and a half it came out, or 2 weeks it came out, I went and saw it, and then I went and saw it again, and the second time I'm like, And then when I got it on DVD, I did the same thing. I threw it in, and I just mostly worked on models while it was on in the background. I was like, man, this does not hold up. So I think it actually hits my bottom 3.
Aaron, can I quote that as your review of Deadpool?
Great the first time. Second time.
That's the audio clip that I live for.
I will say the marketing of those movies is better than the actual movies.
Right, and that's where I
Ryan Reynolds is a
I think the
genius.
disconnect there is that it's supposed to be a comedy movie, great, fine, whatever. My usual comedy movies still hold up after one viewing. That one doesn't so much.
The death of the X-Force in X2 is probably in Deadpool 2 is better than anything else in all this franchise. I mean, like what the hell is
Thank
Bill
you, Brad
Skarsgård
Pitt.
getting stuck into a wood chipper?
Yeah.
Which will
Yeah.
never not be funny.
Oof.
Or for example, Brad Pitt hitting a
Oh, that's right. His 12 frames.
His payment for that was Ryan Reynolds getting him coffee.
It wasn't even
That was insane.
even Ryan Reynolds. He just got a cup of coffee.
Yeah. You're like, we can't pay you. We
Either
can give
way.
you coffee. He's like, yeah, I'm down. Sure. Yeah.
As a filmmaker, I feel that. Guys, is it time for
Yeah.
a break? I know we could probably talk about this all day.
Yeah.
Let's
I'd
do
say like-
that.
X-Men rankings are as unique as astrological signs, I think.
You're not wrong.
I want to, before we go to a break, I want to leave you guys with half of a quote, and then I'm going to pick it up when we come back from the break.
All right.
Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you know what happens to a toad when it's struck by lightning? Well, you're listening to this on Patreon, so I don't know why I need to hawk myself here for you, right? I mean, this is a nice little oasis in between the middle parts of the show. I just set up a joke. You're going to hear the end of it right after this. There's no need for me to go too long in this break, right? There's nothing else to put here. I don't even know what we're going to do in season 4. I mean, this is the creative process live for you right now, because you pay the extra $1. You get the extra $1 to see me have a freak out about what I'm going to do about the middle of my goddamn show, before I can just make real content. I don't know. Anyway, here's the end of that joke. The same thing that happens to everything else.
Fuck you.
Knew that
You
was
know
happening.
what the line was actually supposed to be? What happens to a toad when it's struck by lightning? It croaks. That was the line.
That's better.
No,
honestly.
that's
They
worse.
say it. They say it on the commentary track. Bryan Singer and Tom DeSanto say that's the line, but they hadn't set it up 2 times prior, so they just swiped it for something else.
That's right. I remember it being like a rule of threes thing that just didn't pay off. So
because
like,
they did rewrites. David Hayter got brought in to do rewrites, and they reshot some stuff. Those scenes got excised.
right.
Yeah.
Well,
Thank you, Snake.
For the sake of this show, enjoy that as much as you will. That is the most work I will put in forethought for a show. We're we're talking about Days of Future Past. We have Brandon and Jesse hosting with me, and Aaron is our guest of the day. You have a pitch for how to fix this film. You hinted at many different points that you fixed a lot of our issues with it. I'm very interested what you're going to do with this movie.
First off, I guess as it stands, it's a perfectly fine movie, but I'm one of those people that like, oh, the devil's in the details, right?
Right.
So we touched.
I mean, we did American History X like not too long ago, and said, yeah, it's a really good movie, but there's things we could complain about.
There is.
Totally.
I mean, great movie.
Yeah. Speaking of which, I want to point out one thing. This is actually kind of a sequel to the Wolverine movie, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In that movie, doesn't he lose his metal claws?
Yes.
Why do they come back in this movie?
We don't know.
Stop paying attention, Jesse. Stop paying attention.
I believe it or not, that's in my fuck ups from previous films and things that this movie fucks up later.
Because fuck continuity. Fuck everything.
No.
Wait, what's continuity?
I'm still allowed to go. No, not. No, that's a noise of indifference. This is a noise of disapproval.
Oh, okay. Good to know the difference.
It's a noise of complete indifference. Like, I can take it or leave it.
Sure.
Okay. So,
Makes sense.
where do you want me to start? Because I have a couple of cliff notes on different topics. I could start with specifically things with Sentinels or characters and plot.
So, let me start you off in the right direction.
Sure.
Here. The best versions are if you have a 3-act structure, set that up, and then we can just kind of like hang out in the monkey bars from there. If there are things you need to set up before that 3-act strucure, this is the time to do so.
I did not do a 3-act structure at all.
Well, perfect. So I guess give us your not.
Okay, well, fine. Okay, I guess I can read through these and do them in order of when they appear in the film. So
okay,
I can
that would be easy to track with.
try and track the film as I remember it from years ago because I've been thinking about it for so long.
Totally.
But let's start on the opening of this movie where we definitely somewhere in the beginning of the film, and God help me if it's at the end of the film, fuck all of you. Where we are shown the autopsy photos of the mutants from Future Past who are not going to appear in this film, right?
Okay.
They're all dead on slabs. Okay. So to set up the rest of the rewrite of this movie, the Bryan Singer said this movie is about the soul of Mystique, and largely I agree. However, in the interest of self-preservation or whatever, they made her DNA the key to making better Sentinels, which, even without going into the comics as to how her powers work, shape-changing does not give you the ability to change what happens to you.
Okay.
On paper.
They even addressed that in the first X-Men movie when Mystique changes to Wolverine. And the two Wolverines fight, and he slashes at her claws, and the claws get chopped off. It's like,
right.
Yep.
So that implies that she doesn't grow adamantium
Yep.
from her body.
Yeah.
So,
no,
okay.
she's not that cool. However, you have a very easy fix for this situation. It's super simple. And I feel like some writer that wasn't respected enough pitched this, and they just changed it to make it the lowest common denominator for everyone else, right? On one of these slabs, you have Kevin Bacon's character, who, if I'm not mistaken, it wasn't Bolivar Trask. It was he did use Bolivar Trask as one of his pseudonyms, didn't he? Or one of his names, didn't he?
Did he? I haven't seen First Class in a while.
I think he
Wasn't
did.
it like Sebastian Shaw?
It was Sebastian Shaw, right. But one of his... Oh, no, the Nazi version was Bolivar Trask. Really, it was. Because he has to change his name because he doesn't age. They used the name. They used a bad guy name that got used later in the series. It might not have been that one, but they definitely... He appears twice in this timeline and fucks things up, so don't worry. That's...
No, it was Klaus Schmidt in First Class.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
That was his like German Nazi name, and then he switches
Oh,
to
Yeah, I just looked it
Sebastian
up.
Shaw is okay. So they did
Yeah.
use a guy related to the Sentinels, but it's not related to the Sentinels in this. Sebastian Shaw is actually one of the
Right.
guys that put forth the Sentinel program and a lot of the funding and stuff, and he has nothing to do with Sentinels in that movie. That's right. Bolivar Trask is the other guy that was responsible for the Sentinels in the comics. So I knew it was one of the two. I just had them mixed up. Anyway, sorry. Wasn't going down that rabbit hole.
no problem.
So Kevin Bacon, in either case, right, still looks good on film in First Class.
Yes.
Kevin Bacon, as you recall, kills a young mutant by the given mutant named Darwin, African American lad who appeared in Dr. House as one of the residents that was trying to get the job, if you recall. Tall, slender African American guy.
Oh, Omar Epps. Yep.
Omar Epps. No, not Omar Epps. No, Omar Epps was one of the original. No.
No, you're right. No, you're right. It was during season 4. I've just started rewatching House
Right.
the other
You're
month.
right. Same actor.
No, yeah, it was Darwin. Yeah, he was in
Darwin.
the group of students.
Yes, he is.
Or student doctors.
Yes, he
Yeah,
is.
I follow
okay,
him.
so
Yeah.
Kevin Bacon takes a ball of energy, shoves it down his throat, and kills him. And as we all remember, Darwin's ability is to adapt to his environment to an extent.
Yeah.
Now,
Yes.
going forward, I'm going to predicate the entire premise of this is adapting doesn't make you immune. Just throwing it out there.
Correct.
Instead of Mystique's DNA, you have a bunch of mutants on a table, on slabs. No one's going to miss them if you experiment on them. The first thing to change in this movie, just for going forward, to fix some of the Sentinel issues, right? Don't make it Mystique's DNA, make it Darwin's DNA. That they can adapt to resistance based on what is happening around them. Mystique's DNA.
That makes more
Interesting.
sense.
Mystique's
Yeah,
DNA. I told you, I thought about this movie for years.
I don't disbelieve you.
Yeah, Mystique's DNA suddenly being the magical cure for everything, it makes her more of an involved character, but I feel like that one detail doesn't need to be there to make it central to the plot for her to care about killing this asshole that's trying to make Sentinels. We can insert some other reason, right? So that's my first change. If you're doing a story about how the Sentinels adapt to mutant powers, use the dead guy on the table from X-Men First Class to showcase that the Sentinels adapt using another mutant's power that happens to be adapting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it makes sense, actually.
I'm surprised that nobody else noticed this and people are shocked. So,
Well, because we all assumed at that movie that he, like, exploded or got vaporized, so there would be no body.
they show his body, they show his charred corpse on one of the pictures.
Mm-hmm.
His corpse is there. They can use
Did
it.
they?
Yes.
Yeah, they make him eat his son. It's PG-13 violent, so it's like wide shot, not zoomed in on. But
Yes.
it's like that.
Azazel is on a slab. A couple other mutants are on there. We don't really care about them. The
Angel's on there.
Angel's on there, right? And Darwin's.
Why would they even call her Angel anyways? There's another Angel in this universe.
Believe it or not, there is a second Angel in the X-Men comics from way back when, and has yes.
okay.
There's not. It's not that Angel.
Well, Angel became Archangel before the new Angel showed up.
No, Angel was always Angel, even in the first iteration of comics. He was actually called Angel and changed to Archangel later and became way more popular as Archangel, then went back to Angel. But original X-Men, he was one of the original X-Men when Beast had no blue fur and simply looked like a dude that was a gorilla. He was called Angel back then, too.
Right, but the second
My head hurts.
the second
Comics are
Angel.
weird.
The second Angel didn't exist then. This is semantics.
Oh,
arguing
right.
too.
The second
Oh, I
Angel
know.
didn't exist in that era. Yes, you were right. Sorry.
Right.
Sorry.
Yeah.
And
He
the
shows
second
up in Apocalypse again. So.
Yeah,
Got
the
it.
second Angel pops up in the comics, if I remember correctly, and I could be wrong, after he goes to Archangel when he's with Apocalypse, and then he comes back to being Angel eventually, and now we have two Angels. Comics are weird.
Comics aren't that weird. The rule of thumb is once you've moved titles or you've died and somebody picked up your mantle, you need a new title. In that era, they didn't do that.
True.
Good case in point. Hawkeye died. Kate Bishop becomes Hawkeye. Hawkeye's resurrected. Now he needs a new name. Becomes Ronin. And that's why we have Ronin in Endgame.
Right.
Which, by the way, Ronin was a badass. So,
We saw Endgame. That oneer was fucking epic.
yeah, So anyway, it happened with Hank Pym too. That's how he became Yellow Jacket. He was dead for a bit, and
Right.
Scott Lang picked up his mantle. Anyway,
Every one of these characters has died like a dozen times. Like, even Frank Castle has died and been resurrected.
Frankencastle became Frankencastle for a little bit too.
Yes, Frank. Where he became Frankenstein,
Yeah,
resurrected by the Marvel monsters.
we're not going to talk about that.
Hi, Brandon.
It's fine. It's fine.
All right. Okay, so I'm trying to find where I. Okay, so these are completely.
Is your pitch like bullet points?
Yeah, it's not canon. It's not in order, so there's no way to.
We're
You can
gonna
just go down the list.
Okay, we're
Yeah.
gonna talk.
I mean, if we're not, yeah.
All right, we're talking Sentinels then. We're starting with Sentinels.
Yes,
Perfect.
please, God, let's fix
Yes.
that, please.
Okay, so point 2 ties into point 1, and we've already talked about it a little bit here. Is even if they can adapt, they should never have been insane as they were. Adapting means resistance to something not completely immune.
Right.
As we straight up saw, Darwin cannot adapt to a mutant power that turns him into a crispy critter, even if he wanted to. His mutant power doesn't allow him to live on a sun, so he died.
Yeah.
Same thing with the Sentinels. Even if they, on the predication, right, that they have Darwin's ability to adapt, that would give them a resistance, not an immunity to whatever their phase, whatever they're facing. That's not necessarily, and more to the point, I guess in the film you see Sentinels getting hit from two different directions. I think that again, movie magic, right? The Sentinels, as they were designed, adapt to whatever's hitting them. At no point did it say, by the way, Mystique's DNA is so awesome she can adapt to everything and unlock every mutant power ever. Well, if that's the case, then they wouldn't change like how they look when they are adapting.
It also doesn't make any sense. Like, they're machines. Why do they need DNA?
Right. And more.
Like, it really doesn't make a lot of sense.
No, it doesn't. But more importantly, if you're hitting somebody with ice and fire, they can't adapt to both of those powers at the same time. One's got to get through.
Aaron, they turn into icy hot. Okay, we all know how this works.
Icy to cool the pain and hot to dull.
Robots,
All right,
Vapor
Shaq.
rub in there as well.
robots don't feel pain. Yeah.
Well, they could be programmed to.
I mean, for, as much as I complain about the new Sentinels in the future, like, they do look pretty good.
I didn't mind how
they're
looked.
they're creepy. They're appropriately creepy.
They're what? It's not the is it the T-1000 that's the liquid?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're basically like T-1000s, and for a Terminator future, as all four of us pointed out, that's pretty cool. I like it.
Or retroactively, the Rev 9 from Dark Fate,
Yeah,
which is probably more accurate.
I never saw Dark Fate or
It's all right.
or Genesis.
It's not bad. It's better than
Skip
Genesis.
Genesis. Don't even bother, because that's bullshit.
Please skip Genesis.
Okay. Well.
Yeah.
So,
we did a pitch of it, and basically Steph just said, "Yeah, throw the whole fucking thing out the window."
cool.
you can't fix it.
There's
Can't
no
fix it.
save. You can't fix stupid.
I love you.
Ron White. So no. What was I gonna say here? Sentinels, right? So,
We're going with classic design.
yes and no. I would say okay. So the thing in the comics, the you got to remember the X-Men don't die to just a couple Sentinels that are there. They die to it in the comics anyway. They die to mass numbers of these things. It's never one Sentinel takes out Colossus. It's never
Right.
a Super Sentinel takes out Colossus. It's always 12 Sentinels might take out Colossus if he's having a bad day.
Sure.
And in the comics, and much like any of the video games, the X-Men's strength comes from their training to work together as a team. Even the Avengers don't work as a team as well as the X-Men because they just don't. That's not their thing, right? The X-Men have one power apiece. They're not like the Avengers where they just have, fucking Thor swinging big dick Thor hammer and it does stuff. They're more the teamwork group, and that's where they fail typically in the comics, or at least in Days of Future Past and anything that involves the Future Sentinel plotline. The overwhelming number of Sentinels is what gave them a problem. It was never, hey, there's 12 of these things, or hey, there's like 3 of these things we send and it kills like 12 mutants because it can adapt. It was always, there are hundreds of these things. They're everywhere. There's no escape. And so I think I would have liked to have seen, even if we are going down the premise that there's a couple of these special ones, right? They're going to be more expensive. They're not going to be like mass manufactured ones. Like the classic ones are the foot soldiers. Once in a while, the Sentinels could throw a Captain America in there. They've got the ability to. There's a couple different versions, just like we mentioned Terminator. There's a couple different versions of Sentinels, and I think what the movie could have done a little bit better, just to improve the future timelines, where you don't have Blink be useless, where you don't have Colossus be useless. If you up the number, because CG is relatively cheap when you're taking the same model and doing the same 3 animations, right, in the background.
For sure.
If you just take the number of Sentinels in the shot flying towards them and quadruple it, you don't need to show all of them. You only if you're focusing on the few that can adapt for the other shots, fine. But to present the scale that really gives the X-Men a problem would have been something I would have liked to have seen. Now, Storm took out tons of these things in the air. And again, some of them didn't go down. They showed like, we were resistant to lightning after a little bit, but I mean, in the background, would it really have been so bad to be like, hey, we've, all these basic bitch Sentinels are on fire now,
right? Yeah.
So I think my not that the fight scenes were bad or anything, but to focus on the strengths of the X-Men in the future, like we were talking about in the things they did right, things they did wrong, the side cast characters like Bishop isn't a bitch. Like, Bishop has been fighting Sentinels his whole life in the comics. Like, even if he's gonna die a horrible death, which was sort of the plan from the get-go with all those guys, to be able to give them at least, not that they had a chance to begin with, but for 3 Sentinels to kill half a dozen mutants or more, like, it ain't a problem. I had it's a summer action movie. If you're going to do the summer action, there's got to be, I think the thing, I don't like Age of Ultron, but the thing that Age of Ultron did right, there are enough Ultron clones that scrapping them left and right, you just get to see the Avengers do some cool stuff with a bunch of things that don't matter.
Yeah, true.
30
Age of
30
Ultron
second
is kind of like a carbon copy of the first film, just with a different villain.
Yeah.
It's basically the same movie.
Not wrong.
30-second aside, how do you feel about Method Man being the new Bishop? He's really pushing that on Instagram.
Yeah.
I didn't hear anything about that. And to be fair, I actually didn't like the choice of Cable for Deadpool 2, but that's me.
I agree. I think Josh Brolin's too charismatic for that character.
I would have really liked Stephen Lang.
Yeah.
He was pushing it.
He was pushing it.
He really was.
Oh, yeah, true.
He was he was working out. He was posting on Twitter. He wanted it bad.
Stephen Lang's come a long way from being that snivelly little weasel of a henchman in Tombstone.
I don't even remember him in Tombstone, and I saw that movie recently.
Exactly. He's unrecognizable in Tombstone. He's the guy who talks big, but whenever there's like a gunfight, he like panics and runs away. Like he's that character. Yeah, the guy with the big bushy beard and the hat. Like, no, don't shoot. Like that's Stephen Lang. That's one of his earlier roles.
Steroids are a hell of a drug.
Yeah. I mean, now that MCU owns X-Men, maybe we can finally get him as
I hope so.
True.
Maybe
maybe.
Other one that was up for
parallel universes.
The other one that wanted it at the time, and I think only because of political stuff he was saying on the internets at the time, the other guy who wanted it was Ron Perlman, and I don't think that was a good choice.
No.
Yeah, I love Hellboy. I will speak the praises of that
franchise.
2 movies to to the end. But yeah, he's not Cable.
He's not Cable at all. No. There's actually another character I would have liked him better for in the MCU by a lot.
He's a better Juggernaut. Honestly,
no,
he's Beast. He's Beast.
I wouldn't even go that route.
Really?
I mean, he played the Beast, if you want to get technical, with Linda
Oh
Hamilton.
God, that's right.
No.
Oh fuck.
No, actually, I think Ron Perlman. I know they have one. Whatever, screw it. I think the best way to go for Ron Perlman, because is it William Hurt was doing General Thunderbolt for a little bit?
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, yeah.
Thunderbolt Ross.
What you're saying
yeah.
is sex to me. I'm on board.
Well, okay, so Ron Perlman is Thunderbolt Ross into the Red
Who becomes a Red Hulk.
Red Hulk.
Red
yeah.
Hulk, Ron Perlman. Yep, I'm on board.
Ah, there you go.
I'm on board.
Can you tell I thought?
He's just Hellboy again.
Can you tell I thought about that one
Shut
for a
up,
little bit
Brandon.
too?
Sure, totally.
Yeah, no.
Nice.
I like that you're on board. Like, at least I'm preaching to the choir. I'm in the right place. So the third point was more, not less. And you can mix in a couple different models of the Sentinels if you really want to showcase them. And we talked about X-Men Evolution earlier. Believe it or not, the X-Men Evolution Sentinel is my go-to for the argument for this. I know that sounds weird because it's one of the cartoons. Do you remember?
Hey, I'm on board, but I can't speak for everyone.
Oh, right. Do you guys remember X-Men Evolution at all?
Yeah.
I remember of it, but I didn't.
Dude,
I
I
never
remember
watched
one
it.
scene where Gambit and Rogue meet up for like 5 seconds, and he hands her a card that explodes.
Yes.
That's all I remember.
Yes. He started.
I know that their relationship is very different than it is in the actual.
He started out. He started out
comics.
straight brotherhood.
Oh,
in
okay,
that.
that makes sense.
And he was a massive dick, and he was one of the actual first ones to fight one of the X-Men, and it was Rogue versus him. Yeah, actually. But anyway, yeah, no, that show is great, and it still holds up. I watched it as a teenager. I watched it later on in life, and I'm like, still holds up. Still good life lessons. But no, the first episode involving in Evolution did a lot of things right. Because they got to retcon things appropriately. And the thing that they did right, and they even explain it, not that you need to explain this to a teen audience, but they even justify it, which even makes the writing better. They bring out a Sentinel, and it's a prototype Sentinel. And they basically march it into the middle of town where some of the kids are to capture mutants as a first test run. And I'm pretty sure Trask and Stark or Shaw are arguing about some stuff in a scene. They don't say who they are. One of them says their name, but you can pretty much tell who it's supposed to be, right? And they go into this this Sentinel gets some of its weapons ripped off. Like the X-Men put up a fight, but at the end of the day, there's this gel cannon that encapsulates them and allows the Sentinel to capture a good portion of them, minus Kitty Pryde and maybe 2 or 3 others. Kitty Pryde just goes through the gel or whatever. I think they actually still lock up Nightcrawler. He can't teleport out of it. So the Sentinel gets massively fucked up in this battle, but still manages to come out ahead. And even getting upon to base, they touch upon the fact that this thing was so expensive it can't afford losses like that. With its weapons being removed, like the repairs and all this stuff, they basically would have to build a new one. And because it's so expensive, they basically, the Shaw or Trask, whoever's making the argument, goes, they're not cheap enough to mass produce.
Yeah.
We can't. He's like, great, the trial run was a disaster. And the guy's like, what do you mean a disaster? We just kidnapped like 10 fucking mutants and they're out of commission permanently as long as we put them in jail. And he's like, yeah, but we can't afford to do that at I think they said at the time, keep in mind in the 90s, they're like at like $5 million per Sentinel, we can't do that. Or $3 million per Sentinel, we can't do that. It's not sustainable in the long term, and we can't have them patrolling cities. This product you want to sell isn't sellable. Case in point, the expensive ones in the future probably are expensive to make. Coming back to, you need the cheapos. T-100s, man. Got to put up more T-100s.
Right. Yeah.
So, like, the cost of, like, how much money did they raise to get an army of these things in the future? Again, coming back to the scorched earth thing, like, how bad...
Well, I think they established in the film that the machines basically began to build themselves.
Yeah.
Like they established their own kind of consciousness. Like only like the uber powerful or uber rich. Basically, let's just say like the uber right wing crowd won.
Yeah.
Is kind of the future that's in this film.
It's more of a minor annoyance.
The machines are kind of taking care of everything now.
Well, it's more of a minor annoyance because it's like you still need to supposedly put the DNA.
You need to have a face to put to the threat.
Yeah.
Right. And again, we did mention Master Mold. I mean, even if you for 2 seconds mention that once they built Master Mold, then they established dominance. I mean, I don't even care if it's a montage of how the future got so fucking bad. At least show me like
it's like Skynet. They turned it on and it immediately established its own consciousness, became sentient, and it just wiped out the human race.
Right.
I mean, sure. Believe it or not, Master Mold showed up in the original trilogy to a lesser extent.
Really?
Yeah, I'm gonna need you to explain that because what the fuck?
Excuse me? What? Where?
Okay, so if I was like, I shouldn't go down this rabbit hole.
Yes, you should.
I should.
Yes, you
Where
should.
the fuck was he in any of the original three?
It's not in the original movie. Sorry, it's not in one of the three original movies. Sorry. It was the original script for X-Men 3 that actually made X-Men 3 the Last Stand video game. That was part of the original.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
The original plots when they had Alan Cummings still coming back as Nightcrawler and all that stuff. That was actually the direction that movie was supposed to go, and they just took the script and turned it into a video game. That happens more often than you'd think. One of the best Bond movies ever made was never a movie. It was actually the plot for Blood Diamond, which was supposed to be when Quantum of Solace hit, but they didn't. MGM actually was bankrupt and couldn't make the movie, so they just put the plot into the video game they were already working on that involved Daniel Craig and the Casino Royale cast anyway, and they just made Blood Diamond. And I'm sitting here and I played it, I'm like, well, this was better than Quantum of Solace. Quantum of Solace was complete ass.
Would you fix it?
I would.
Yeah.
I can fix it.
Well, I mean, if we still get that fifth Craig film by the end of the year, hey, there's a good time to do it.
Right.
I think
Here's how you fix Quantum of Solace. Hold the camera steady.
No.
And get a better editor.
No, you need a better plot first off.
Aaron, don't blow your load here.
Don't make it
we're
Casino
on X-Men.
Royale 2.
Don't blow your
That was
load
the
here.
biggest
We're on
problem.
X-Men.
Right, sorry. I'll fix Quantum of Solace in 1 second. Or in one sentence. Gasoline matches. Anyway.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay.
Dumpster fire. So the Sentinels were really we discussed it, more of them, more variety, and it's not like the CG department would have been like, oh my god, we have to design them from the ground up. No, just add a little extra features here or there, different colored lights to differentiate them. They're background characters anyway, and much like the X-Men who are background characters, they didn't matter, but it would have been nice.
Yeah.
So that's really all I had for the Sentinels. Is just like, okay, I mean, they're there, great. The interesting thing about the movie, and I don't know if you caught it on the rewatch, right? So the Sentinels that are on the train before Magneto gets a hold of them, right, don't look like Sentinels. They do, but they don't, right?
I am
they look
Optimus
like-
Prime.
Yeah, they look like early versions, and I said before they look like Tonka blocks.
Okay, so what's interesting though is if you actually watch after he runs the cables through them and shit, they actually look really close to the original X-Men 90s cartoon ones. Like where the knee joints have like a little bit of a vertical lines and stuff. Him running the wires through them actually gives them the appearance of the old 90s ones a little bit. The coloring's still off, but that plasticky look versus that awkward metallic lumbering look, I thought that was kind of a nice touch and a good nod, especially since the 70 Sentinels looked way cooler than the future ones. The future ones looked dopey as shit. I'm sorry. Like, I'm sorry. They gave me flashbacks of the original Thor.
Oh, you don't like dripping pixels? That's not your aesthetic?
No, I don't.
Fuck out of here.
No, I don't like my Sentinels looking like the Destroyer.
I'm
the
not
same
going to say you're
face
wrong.
I will agree with that.
With the same face eye beam that melts everything. Yeah, I'm sorry. Is this an Avengers movie? Or, sorry, Thor movie.
And same difference. I've got a question.
Yeah, sure, shoot.
Did anyone here besides me, which I feel like I already know the answer to, play the Deadpool game that came out for PlayStation 3 or 4, I think?
Oh, yeah, I played it.
I didn't, and the funny thing is, due to contractual stuff, they actually can't re-release it digitally. they're in a weird place where they could on Steam for a little bit, then they couldn't, then they could, and I basically have it on my wish list, and it hasn't popped up in a few years, but I regret not buying it for $12 because apparently now the licensing for it's so defunct. Having it on Steam is like kind of a holy grail.
So I have 2 points I want to make about it. We'll say 3 actually. One is not important, one is kind of important, and one is very important.
One of them better be boobs.
The not important point is the Harley Quinn film owes a lot to the opening sequence of the Deadpool game.
Oh my god, yeah.
Like, I'm not talking like vaguely similar. I'm talking a million miles of jokes are exactly the same. The apartment is laid out almost identically. Not an issue. I think it improves the Harley Quinn movie. Not an issue. I just wanted to point that out for anyone who has played the game and seen Birds of Prey.
I've seen Birds of Prey. I didn't know about that, but related to Harley Quinn, believe it or not, the animated show is actually pretty good.
The animated show's great. You're not wrong.
And I couldn't believe Kelly Coco like doing that role. I'm like, man, she's far better at this than I ever thought she would have been.
I know.
And what's funny about that is we've now had 2 of the 3 female leads from Big Bang Theory do the voice of Harley Quinn at this point. Yeah, because both now Kaylee Cuoco's doing the voice now on the Harley Quinn show, and the one who played Bernadette, Melissa Rock, she did the voice on an animated DC film, but I can't remember which one it was.
It was,
but yeah, so the 2 of them now we just need.
It wasn't Red Hood. It was the Batman vs. Robin, right?
Yeah, I think that was it. Yeah, but she was doing like the classic Harley voice with the Jersey accent, while Kaylee Cuoco's like, nope, I don't care. And so that's like the first time Harley does not have an accent at all. Like a very neutral American accent.
Yeah, it still
basically
works, though. It's actually...
So I've heard, I've seen clips. It looks
I promise I'm going to wrap this back into Days of Future Past. The next point I want to make is the gameplay of the Deadpool game is not great, but it is a like shoot 'em up slasher kind of thing. So if that's your go-to, you just like killing loads of people, hey, you're going to have a good time.
Good luck finding the game, and if you do, email the show, and they will send me where I can get it because I would love that.
If I find a way to hook you up, I will hook you up. I promise.
I've been looking for years. I heard one negative thing about the game. It depends on what era of comics you like, because Deadpool falls into 2 categories. I've actually met the creator, Deadpool Cable. He was a jackass, but that's beside the point.
We all know that about Liefeld.
Yeah, he was on his phone for the entire signing, and I wanted to talk to him. He just ignored me. So, and I was paying. I was paying for the signing, and I'm sitting there like, wow, okay. But no, it depends on your era of Deadpool. I guess it's more like one than the other, which is kind of like the first film versus the second. If you like one era of Deadpool and you don't like the other, then it might be a hit miss. I don't know.
It is.
Well, it's funny because I'm also thinking about, still related, when X-Men Origins had its game come out for PS3 and Xbox 360. That was far more entertaining than the movie, because it was this like hard M-rated video game where it was like wow, the movie's certainly nothing like this.
The reason for that, and I actually live in this. At the time, I lived in the city where they were doing the development for that. That was Raven Studios in Madison, Wisconsin. First off, I actually was going to school with people who were in the video game classes, and I actually got to meet those guys while they were working on the game to an extent.
Oh shit!
And they were wrapping up on it, and they did some presentations and all this other stuff. So I have more background on that game than I mean, it's been years since it came out. I'm sure there's no NDA that's going to suddenly So funny enough, they were in development on that game for 18 months to 24 months before the movie was being shot. And then they were handed this thing to script in the plot. So it was actually a standalone Wolverine title game. No tie-in to the movie prior. And so the things they got to work on were like the regeneration, and specifically there are 4 helicopter kills. Like they had to do a couple helicopters for the helicopter scene in the movie or whatever. And they
you mean the trailer?
Right. So they had 4 helicopters you kill in the game, and they're like, well, the animation for killing them is the same. So the whole 18 months or extra year they got on it was purely additional funding boost shove in some plot and
Damn.
polish the shit out of it. So they did 4 separate animations for the helicopters dying with Wolverine doing different stuff. They polished out the regeneration, and basically people have a bad perception of it because it has a bad movie title tie-in, but believe it or not, that game was far and away supposed to be its own thing, and I would still cite it's probably one of the better comic book games ever made.
Yeah,
as a result.
I think
And that's it's definitely one of the few times that a game based on a movie turned out better than the movie, but in this case it's because it wasn't
Not
meant
at
to be
all.
based
Right.
on a movie.
Yeah.
That was just
Right.
like a last minute addition. But I'm assuming that means that the PS2 and original Xbox versions of X-Men Origins were like, oh no, this actually is an after the fact movie tie-in, which is why they were rated T for teen.
Yeah.
Potentially.
Yeah, it's the whole thing's really weird about that from what I've heard over the
worked
years.
at GameStop when that movie was being launched. I just gotten the job there, and they had some extra shirts. So I actually have a Wolverine Origins T-shirt, and I wear it. And people, people give me shit all the time, and they go, "That movie was terrible. What is wrong with you?" And then I point to where it says "the game," and they go, "Oh, I never
Yeah.
played the game," and I'm like,
Nice.
"Yeah, you should." Because it's really good. It's actually on the back. It says "Weapon X Lab Tech," and on the front there's Wolverine's claws coming through the shirt like he's stabbing you.
No, I like that. Nice.
I actually wore it today for the podcast. Yeah,
For the audio medium, here's your visual version.
I wanted to get myself pumped and in the mindset of X-Men for today. So when I got dressed, I put on an X-Men shirt.
There you go.
And this is why I love you.
We just met.
I know, according to our Discord and other things that I've seen, the game has a like subculture that really embraced it. It is not a shit on game anymore.
True.
I can't speak to that too much. I know I've seen the cutscenes. I know I've specifically seen the Lost tie-in, where you can find the bunker from Lost in that game. I don't know if the creators that were big into Lost at the time, but that is a thing that is in the game.
They were, and
Wow.
B, that was deliberate. Other weird things in video games, if you've played Far Cry 3, they actually had like a mini series on YouTube before that came out with all the actors in it, and you can actually find, because at the time Kick-Ass 2 was coming out, the bad kid, that's the bad guy. Yeah, he goes on a yacht and all the people are kidnapped and killed on the island, and it's like a mini series starring him on the island with the dude that plays the crazy Hispanic dude from Far Cry 3. He leaves him buried in a hole and comes back for him like 7 days later, and only his head sticking out of the sand, and he's dead at the end of the YouTube thing. You can find it. You can find the buried corpse in the game on the beach. Just that actor's fucking head sticking out of the sand.
This is the niche internet culture stuff that I love to see pop up on the show. It's like a Loch Ness sighting, but I love it.
Yeah, I'll even link those to you later after the show.
Please throw that.
And then
in
at
Discord.
the end, depending on which one you're watching, they will give you the location in game, or you can just you could go look up screenshots of where it is.
Right. This whole 20-minute diatribe was about me talking about the Deadpool game.
Yep.
The point that I wanted to make was in the game, Deadpool goes to Genosha, however you pronounce the X-Men island. Genosha.
Yeah.
And he fights a 50-story Sentinel.
Oh.
And there's a few lines in the game of him saying, specifically, you have to take over the foot that will fly you up to the Sky Fortress to fight Mr. Sinister. And he calls attention to the fact that the functionality of this foot is easily $1 billion, and these things are not functional. They are literally commenting on why Sentinels are not a great idea within the game, but it's still part of the plot, and it's awesome.
Sorry, we got off track. Yeah, I forgot. Yeah, I didn't even know how you're tying back, and then it's like, oh yeah, because he wasn't done. My bad.
The end of
it is an absurd thing, the idea of you need Sentinels in order to track down mutants. Couldn't you just make a tracking device?
Couldn't you just do
send foot soldiers to do it? Why do you need a giant robot that could cause all kinds of property damage?
DC's version of this is Wells 2 on Earth 2 just came up with an app that beeps your fucking watch or your Apple Watch.
Anything you need to make sense is just Wells just comes up with a random idea.
Wells sells you a thing.
Yeah.
Not to go back to the negatives of this movie, but at one point Trask pulls what I think is a TV remote out of his pocket and says, "Oh, there's a mutant near us."
Yeah.
Is that operating on radio signal? What the fuck was that thing?
So,
Yeah.
so hold on. You're telling me that we could, and again, this is just military spending and the entire military.
Yeah.
Right. You're telling me
So they
we
could make a tracking device just to give to regular soldiers.
but instead, giant fucking robot, because fascination with manga and Gundam?
But instead, you got Iron Man 2 in my X-Men movie.
Guys, say it with me.
Because the movie needed to happen?
Because the movie needed to happen.
I may go back and sync that up. I may not. I can't make any promises.
I didn't say it at all because I didn't know what to say.
Oh,
Yeah, it's a thing we have going. Whenever I point out like a cheap excuse for why certain things happen in film is it's because the movie needed to happen.
Okay.
we're working on a website, and when the merch store is fully functional, the Jesse T-shirt is literally going to be his face just furrow-browed from BVS going, because the movie needed to happen.
I feel like that's gonna be my entire complaints about next weekend for Rise of Skywalker.
Oh, boy.
Why did that happen? Because the movie needed to happen. Why did Chewie get shot but then somehow was alive? Because the movie needed to happen.
You know what we need? We need a stinger episode for that, where it's just your complaints listed out in bullet form for
Fuck.
for the
Dude,
fans.
I already did BVS. Damn it!
Yeah, even Jesse
I
doesn't
don't
want
even
to do
wanna
that, so
it,
we
man.
ain't gonna do
movie
that.
Just fucking broke me. I'm just done.
So,
No more 300
No
bullet
more.
points. No, we're
If
good.
you want
have-
it for Patreon, fine. But
If Jesse throws them the
That's
towel,
what
that
I'm
means
saying.
no.
Special OnlyFans subscription.
OnlyFans.
I will think about it.
So, I speaking of bullet points, I did. So those were my Sentinels issue. Number of Sentinels. Swap out Darwin.
Yeah.
They can't.
Make them the right color. Make them like bright purple.
I wouldn't
Make them,
even.
like-
I wouldn't even say they needed to be the right color. Even if they color muted them to fit the tone of the future, I'd be fine with it if it was still toned to be pink purple ish. Or
Yeah.
believe it or not, actually some of the other models are actually a navy blue in the chest
Yeah.
and silver on the limbs and stuff.
Well,
So
Master Mold is like almost Apocalypse color styled.
yes, he is.
sometimes.
And more specifically, sorry, not trying to jump into video. I'm not trying. The new Ultimate Alliance 3, terrible game. But it covers... It's not as good as the other two, and I bought a Switch for it, so I'm a little disappointed. Anyway,
Whoops.
yes, you can ask me about buying a Switch for a Marvel Ultimate Alliance game later, where I was disappointed. Yeah.
I bought a Switch for Breath of the Wild. And
Yeah, but
was
that's
happy,
a Zelda
so
game.
I'm fine.
That's justifiable. This was a
Right.
completely different thing. You're like, wait, what? No, they cover the models of Sentinels attacking the X-Mansion really well because they color differentiate them, and not only that, the enemies actually have different attacks too that you have to watch out for. And then on top of that, there's actually a Sentinel that gets a hold of an Infinity Gem of power, which actually is a really cool boss fight. So they do a pretty good job of all of that. Better than this movie by far. So
Agreed.
agreed. Yeah. So that was my minor ticks about Sentinels in all their forms throughout the movie, from future to past. The winner of the Sentinel for the entire movie, though, is in second place we have 70s robot on the trains that aren't doing anything. In first place, Magneto's version by far is the closest thing visually to what I think everybody wanted to see out of them, but not necessarily picking apart visuals for the sake of the Sentinels, more plotline stuff.
I also I want to point out for 1 second, irony in films. Magneto, the leader of the mutant resistance, is puppeteering the Sentinels, the downfall of the mutant resistance. That it's like Darth Vader using the light side of the Force to me. In a subtle way.
It's like
Is what
Kylo
it is.
Ren turning light side and being awesome.
They
Hey,
do kind of make him a little too powerful, I think, in this one.
Bullshit.
Oh,
Well, wait, no, he did tap into the Earth's magnetic field in the next one. Fuck, never mind.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, I'm sorry. Magneto.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I take it back.
Magneto,
Are we about to
I forgot about Apocalypse because Apocalypse is
Okay.
just fucking terrible.
Okay, so my citation for Magneto: if Magneto is not doing the things I've seen him do in the comics, he's probably underpowered. It's rude.
Yeah.
yeah. If we're gonna go into Omega level mutants, I
Yeah.
need to talk about the Rogue Cut real quick.
Okay, sure.
So we didn't talk about this at the beginning. Maybe we should have. I don't know. I paid $4 to rent the Rogue Cut, expecting Rogue, and she didn't show up until about an hour and 45 minutes into the movie. A little disappointing, not gonna lie. The editing around her scene where she shows up is flawless editing, though. I will get like Oscar level editing for that scene. She has nothing to do for the rest of the movie besides be Kitty Pryde. But the point I would like to make here is Bobby Drake dies in the mission to pull Rogue out of the old X-Mansion, and random scientists are experimenting on her. They don't really go into it. But the idea being Bobby Drake dies in this mission, he's an Omega level mutant. Now,
I don't believe he is.
he is. That has been established.
Oh,
I
okay.
I will Google it if I have to.
That's
but
fine. No, that's fine.
Iceman Omega level.
Are you saying Bobby Drake or Magneto?
Bobby Drake. Magneto as well is an Omega level. Jean Grey's Omega level. Omega level's like beyond level 5. The idea being their powers can tap into other things that they don't know about if they're big brain enough. So
Oh, okay. I see why he's an Omega level. Got it.
right.
Got it.
He can control hydrogen and oxygen, which are the base of the periodic table. Therefore, he can kind of control everything. Therefore, he's Omega level if he really goes for it.
So I did Google it just to see what he can do because I believe you. I wanted to see feats of strength. More importantly, when he is Omega level, what happens?
Sure.
Number 1 feat: turning light into ice.
Yep.
Enough said.
Yeah.
I'm sold. Done. I don't even need to know the rest of what he can do. That's fine.
So my point here is, in the Rogue Cut, he dies by 3 Sentinels light beaming him to death, and the movie goes, yeah, fuck this guy, he just turns into ice. And I'm going, wait, Omega level exists according to X-Men Last Stand, which is before this movie. Can we? Oh, we're not going to make that canon? Okay, that's fine. Whatever. Bye.
Okay, so as long as we're extending the discussion about Sentinels, fine. Okay, I didn't want to go specifically into. I really didn't want to go specifically into X-Men powers and how they reacted to the Sentinels, despite the fact that was my biggest gripe walking out of the theater, where I felt unsatisfied a little with the film. So since you've opened that can of worms,
You're welcome.
boy, here we go.
You're welcome.
Yeah, no problem. Bishop.
Stop.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll touch Bishop later. Fine, I'll put that one on the back.
No, that was a joke. You can definitely go.
No,
into
I'm
Bishop.
I have him for plot stuff, so I need to touch on him later anyway. Okay.
Yeah, let's jump into plot. I don't want to overextend ourselves.
No.
here.
That's fine. That's fine. The only one that really so Warpath is nigh unkillable, like Superman powers, right? So that's a big one. I won't touch Blink and some of the other ones, but the one that I really had a problem with, and you touched on Iceman, so I think I get one. I mean, I've touched on so many other things that I've gone into tangents, so forgive me. But the one that kills me internally, because I didn't know about Iceman, I did think it was bullshit he died. I didn't realize he was that powerful. Sunspot's probably not that powerful. Warpath definitely not that powerful, but they can hold their own. The one that I had an issue with of the X-Men that died kind of defending the door pointlessly, Colossus.
Colossus in these movies has never had any personality.
Never mind the personality. Colossus, after post-retcon comics, is no longer made of adamantium, if you're not aware of that. He's made of osmium. Which is...
Okay.
Okay.
He's Metal Man to me.
Right.
He looks like the T-1000. He doesn't look good until the Deadpool movies.
Right. So difference between adamantium and osmium. Adamantium, unbreakable. Osmium, densest metal in the universe by far.
They eventually got rid of the whole unbreakable thing with Logan. They said,
Right.
nah, fuck this.
Right.
Whoops.
So
Fuck this
adamantium can
Whoops.
be dented and damaged over time or whatever. Osmium's actually far more resilient. So when they did this retcon that differentiates the two, osmium's actually harder to destroy, but it doesn't rip through stuff as well. So they differentiated it. So they super differentiated vibranium, osmium, and adamantium for everything going forward, so then they can cite which one's which and why it does what. And
I love chemistry in my comic books.
right, so the big problem with this is, if you recall how Colossus dies.
Torn in half.
Yeah, he gets split in half.
Yeah, couldn't happen. Just throwing it out there. It doesn't matter. So going back to the Sentinels, they adapt to what's hitting them, right?
Mm-hmm.
That does not make them like Superman DC level powered of strength to rip osmium in half. At all. Just my 2 cents.
They just kind of got that super strength power. Just got it.
No. Osmium is so tough it takes Dr. Doom holding the cosmic cube to actually get like the lower portion of Colossus's shin to rip off of his body. So he's funneling magic through the cosmic cube, and that's what he did. Was he took off part of his leg?
Holy shit!
Yeah. So when you want to cite like he's not even an Omega level mutant, he is that resilient to damage. And by the way, Dr. Doom, spoiler alert, 1-on-1 with Colossus after everyone else is down, he still couldn't kill him with no backup. He's just trying to.
Yep.
Removed his leg.
And that's not even Colossus when he's the Juggernaut, given the powers of Satorak, the demon that will probably show up in Doctor Strange too. I hope.
Probably not. He's not actually a demon. He's celestial entity from anyway. Cytorak's not a demon, but yes, Juggernaut has more to do with mystic heroes than he does mutants.
Oh yeah.
On a side note, in a video game, you actually need mystic items to level him up in one of the mobile games, not X genes, which is kind of neat.
I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah, but nothing else about that game makes sense. Yondu levels up with tech, not with mystic abilities, and in the comics, he's mystic.
Okay.
Anyway, plot points. Sorry, no more sidetracks. Plot points. Bryan Singer said at one point after the movie was released that this was supposed to be about the battle for Mystique's soul, and that's actually a quote. That's the tone of the film.
Yes.
I am of the opinion that didn't shine through in the film as much as it could have.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't. It's well, she is a central plot piece, not more than Wolverine, but she is one. And it's mostly because her DNA is involved with the Sentinels. I felt like they could have made the plot about, kind of on the whole, the battle for humanity's soul, the choice between good and evil when presented the choice. And you have a character like Mystique who is largely, at this point, first class, not super evil. Joins the
gray.
Brotherhood.
Yeah.
Yeah, joins the Brotherhood, and then some shit happens to her between the two movies, and apparently she's gone full-blown bitch of evil. And well, okay, so I'm gonna there's a deeper rabbit hole within the X-Men continuity, and we've been talking about continuity the whole time, but this movie really wanted to showcase that she still had the capacity to choose between good and evil, as opposed to just, and in the start of the film she's full-blown bitch because they killed her friends and all this other stuff, and it's there. It's not presented as in your face as it could have been to get her perspective on why she feels the need to kill Bolivar Trask. Never mind her DNA being involved. They don't need her DNA to present the plot point that she might feel Bolivar Trask and his Sentinel program is just, she's lost enough friends and he needs to die. It doesn't need to be tied to her DNA to present that as a motivating factor. And to see mutants, the grander scheme of the movie is, it's the battle for Mystique's soul, but they could have touched more on the battle for humanity's soul. We have this dark future where the choice of a few people has caused basically, the genocide of mutants. And in the past, we have the violent tendencies of a couple mutants perpetuating that cycle of violence, and it's tied up in Mystique's choices. And we had some stuff at the end of the movie. There's a great touch that at the end of the movie where she chooses to do the right thing and stand up to Magneto and kind of present to the world that not all mutants are this way, and that's the tone of the film, and
Yeah.
it's there.
And also, the idea of like the battle for Mystique's soul doesn't really make much sense. Like, Mystique isn't in enough of the film.
Right, and
she's not in enough of the movie to make that case. And like humanity seems like it's only represented by like the military. There's very few like bystanders that are shown in this film.
And so the for Brian Singer to say it's about the battle for Mystique's soul, you have an ensemble cast, 2 timelines, and fuck me, it's the 70s plus a post-apocalyptic future, that we can have a philosophical discussion between all of the characters in here about the greater choice of humanity, not just Mystique's soul. And to touch upon that, I mean, we talked earlier, MCU gets the feels better than the X-Men, and I feel like that's where this movie fell short for me a little bit. Was okay, never mind I mean, I could go down the Sentinel thing all day, but what you've presented to me is an entertaining movie, and I loved it for what it was. But that extra push, which is what this podcast is largely about, right, is that we have a setup for the perfect payoff to have this discussion in film form, with the X-Men as a centerpiece and a backdrop, or kind of to make this fictional discussion about, well, I mean, it's a movie, obviously it's fictional, but to have a very real topic conversation about the good and evil and the capacity of humanity to do both in a way that is very easy to discuss in superheroes. And it didn't come through enough to really pull at that thread, and I think they had an opportunity to expand upon both Mystique as a character, but on the whole ensemble. There were scenes in the future where you want to know what happened, what went wrong. More importantly, we touched upon it earlier, the lesser mutants aren't really in there, but even the important ones don't have a heck of a lot of dialogue about. They do have some dialogue, but I feel like even an extra 13 minutes of footage, Magneto and Charles talking about, maybe the things that happened a little bit more and chuckling on the better times, like how did it go so wrong? Even that would have been a nice contrast to the past situation, where instead of having this discussion, we're just like, hey, let's kill Bolivar Trask, or hey, maybe we should talk to him about like this program he's using to hunt down these people for whatever reason. At no point was there a, why are we doing this? Well, I mean, we just accept the fact that the future is fucked and we're trying to prevent that. At no point there's the why. How did it get this bad? How did we as a people let this happen? And more importantly, why did we blame mutants? It's all kind of pigeonholed into, and I get it, it's only got like a however many long runtime, but those were very minor things that could have been incorporated into an already existing framework that's there. Just a couple extra lines of dialogue is really all you need to get the emotional feels going. By the end of the movie, you should be hailing Mystique as a new era, or a catalyst for a new era of humanity and mutant relations. And it's sort of there. It's sort of there. Like there's a glimpse of it. But the setup and the payoff isn't there.
Well, also, it's like she's going to go there to kill Nixon.
Yep.
Like, Nixon was very, very much hated by this point in human history. And a year later, he would resign from his presidency due to his presidential scandal in cheating his way to getting another term.
Right.
Like, so you have a president that is adamantly hated by the American people, resigned in order to avoid going to jail, and then Johnson would come in, and the war in Vietnam would continue. So it's not really. Was it Johnson before or after Nixon?
After.
That's right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I wasn't going to even touch the actual history portion of this.
Yeah, like the actual history, it's trying to wrap it back into actual human history. The problem is that Mystique not killing Nixon at a time when Nixon was hated by the American people really doesn't seem like enough of an emotional push to make America say, "Hey, let's stop fucking each other up."
Yeah.
Because Vietnam would go on for.
By the way,
Vietnam would go on for another 4 years.
By the way, I was accidentally muted. No, it was definitely Ford after Nixon. Johnson was before because Johnson replaced Kennedy.
That's right.
I'm getting my days. It's Reagan that came after.
Right.
It was
Presidents of future
Gerald
past.
Ford took over, and then Nixon.
I want to touch on something really quick, and I brought it up at the beginning of the episode, my issues with this, and if we're going into story and plot, the original Days of Future Past comic, if you're going to boil it down, is a woman against a woman who's going to assassinate a big white dude. That like you boil the whole thing down, it's Kitty Pryde, Shadowcat going back in time to prevent the assassination of Robert Kelly, who, if you've been watching these movies, was in X-Men 1.
Yep.
That was
and 2, kind
Yep.
of.
kind of in 2. A big plot point there. And those movies were ready to represent the big ideas in the comics, which I respect. Days of Future Past specifically, though, is Kitty Pryde versus Mystique. And this movie kind of turns into Wolverine joining Magneto and Professor X. And it's a very, like, dude-driven thing for a plot that is not specifically tied to all of that. Like, the time travel is part of it, for sure. But
it got changed from a feminist piece to a masculinity piece.
Right. Exactly. And, like, Robert Kelly being the point of the assassination, to me, even with the X-Men movies that came before it, would enhance this. It doesn't need to be Nixon. It needs to be Nixon so it can be in D.C. and he can drop the stadium around it and, like, hey, here's your trailer. But in reality, if it's not that, if it is them going back to prevent Robert Kelly from dying, which turns into the Sentinel program, like, whatever you want to go with, like, you can do your own story from there. But I think the actual comic story, even adapted to film, and we got a good film. Like, all of us agree, we got a good film.
Yeah.
But you're, like, equally good, but more prescient and pressing and is making a point version just smacks of, like, missed opportunity.
No, that's all it really was. I mean, and
it feels like a studio mandate,
right.
in a lot of ways.
You have this might be one of those things. Like you said, Bryan Singer really trying versus Bryan Singer. Like, even a little bit of just the thing that's sort of missing both between every era in the film is motivation. The only one with motivation to do anything is fucking Wolverine, because he's seen the future, right? Every other motivating character motivation, like Mystique is self-interest, like, they've got my DNA, I wonder what they're doing with it or whatever, and I'm going to kill this midget. It's kind of like a shotgun blast. Like, you see the pellets, but they're in a kind of like a, how does this all fit together? Whereas if you took a more, like you said, let's pursue the Robert Kelly approach here for a second. Or is it Robert Kelly? It's Senator Robert Kelly. Right. Which, by the way, when he was in the first movie, I was super excited for that, and then they killed him off, and I'm like, oh, never mind. If you don't know,
did they kill him off?
But he turned into water, and it was really fun.
Yeah. That just makes me want to go to the beach. No.
Stanley.
Yeah. Oh boy.
Does Stanley have a cameo in this?
In the Robert Kelly Return to the Beach scene, he is running a beach stand.
Not in the original. I'm talking like in this film, in Days of Future Past.
No, he doesn't.
No.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a cameo in most of the X-Men movies. He only has one in the first one.
No, he's got a few because he's in
all of them. He's in X-Men 3. He's in Origins. Yeah, he's in all of them.
Oh.
He's not in this one though.
No, he's not in this one.
He's even in Deadpool. It's like he's the guy in the strip club.
No, he definitely is in Deadpool.
Oh shit! There's a whole article. Stan Lee won't make a cameo appearance in X-Men: Days of Future Past. Ha!
Why?
I'll read this. I'll send it to the Discord and read it later because this is
fair enough.
juicy.
So if you're not
Wow.
aware, are you actually aware of what happens with Robert Kelly in the X-Men comics at all?
I don't know his
No.
endgame. I do not.
Okay, so I'll TLDR this for the classroom, so we don't go on another tangent. Robert Kelly, it starts on being a senator as we know him in the movies. I'm going to put this in perspective of the movies. He starts as a senator that's largely anti-mutant, and over the course of obviously decades of comic books, right? They don't kill him off. He's kind of the general Thunderbolt Ross or whatever
Yeah.
of mutant relations, where he's like pushing for more mutant sanction laws and stuff. And eventually, in a more progressive era where they needed a more extremist view, he's pushed out of government in the comics, or largely due to the fact that it just was very hard to keep that stereotype going as a bad guy. So he took a more extremist view for a little bit, or he fell out entirely for a little bit. Then he was reelected post possibly Civil War. It might have been a different catalyst, but the death toll from Nitro was one of the reasons he was able to get back into the government, like at a high position. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, right after the school got blown up.
Oh yeah.
Well, the school didn't get blown up. It just happened to be in the blast radius.
Whoops.
It wasn't the focal point of the explosion, but it definitely was in the blast zone. But yes, anti-mutant legislation. I own all of Civil War, so I know way more about those comics than anything else. But anti-mutant legislation was at all-time high during those comics. What really happens with the character is he actually secretly funded the oh god, what are they called? Those it was a really controversial comic when it came out. The religious KKK dudes that killed mutants. The
Oh fuck! I know who you mean.
oh
I've
shit.
never read Civil War.
No, it's not part of Civil War. It's
It's not Mutant Watch, but it's like spins off from Mutant Watch, right?
No, it doesn't. It's its own thing.
Shit.
It is the Purifiers. There we go. That's what they're called. The Purifiers. It's a force of Christian fundamentalists led by it's originally led by Stryker, but it gets backing from Kelly at some point.
This was the X-Men
I
trying
know.
to be the boys
Um,
in a good way.
yeah, side tangent. Robert Kelly. I almost said R. Kelly.
Yeah. Whoops.
You know, at the
why
end of
not?
the day, if
They're both fans of water
I was
sports.
gonna say if so I guess,
Jesse.
is it worse to pee on little girls or mutants?
That's the joke of the day.
Is it worse to pee on little girls or mutants?
Oof.
Is it worse to be a pedophile or a racist? I don't know the answer to that question. Can we please
No,
pivot into
You're
points
fine.
here?
You're fine. Okay, so that was the overall arc of changing the tone of the movie, was getting away from the individual focus on Mystique's soul while it's still Wolverine show. The future plot
Totally.
cuts, the retail release or the Brian. Sorry, it's the Rogue cut, has additional scenes, which I never saw. It's mostly only there as a reminder of what happens if Wolverine fails, and then there's the action scenes. It's not what it could have been. We talked about it. It would have been nice to. I sort of jumped into this plot point earlier or this change point without actually segueing into it earlier, but
Sure.
as a key point, this is the last time that we get to see two actors portray themselves as Magneto and Charles Xavier out of all the movies.
Yeah.
And, well, at the time, we didn't really realize that what's his name would be back for Logan. So at the time, we were expecting.
Whoops.
Yeah, at the time we were expecting a better performance, and it would have been far nicer to see more dialogue between those two in the future, or Storm, or this is sort of a farewell to these characters, but it wasn't focused on as part of the attraction of the movie. I mean, it's supposed to be handing the torch, but it doesn't touch upon the characters we've already seen for 14 years. I mentioned it a little bit earlier, to have them sit down and you know how in the first movie they're like, oh, we used to be friends, the very first X-Men, and like, oh, things have changed, and they
Right.
talk about that a lot, and they didn't touch upon it in this one. And of all the movies you want to have that conversation between Charles Xavier and Magneto, this is the time for that conversation one last time. I know they've done it, but one last time, not only for old time's sake, but to just, these are the characters. They've always been these characters throughout the films. To really, I think it would have resonated a lot better to have Charles Xavier and his dear friend sit down, start a game of chess while they're holding up for the Sentinels, talk about, things they could have done differently if this goes wrong. Just some sort of head nod that this is the last time we could see them play chess. This is the last time we can see them do anything. And of course, we get Logan later, and there's a different Patrick Stewart farewell with that. But Magneto didn't get that sort of same justice in terms of movies. He just fades into obscurity. So that was one of the they could have done more with that. And then you sort of...
Well, all the future cast is gone.
Right.
Everyone's
right.
gone.
Not just
the only
him.
one that comes
Not
back
just
is
him.
Logan and Patrick
Right.
Stewart.
So you wrap 1 and 2 together. The 2 bullet points here being Battle for Mystique's Soul and future plot, sort of the future plot not mattering as much. So you wrap sort of both of these 2 ideas together to refine the tone of the movie to be more about the characters, and the timeline plot exists in the movie is passable. What I was more proposing is a retooling of the focus and scope for an emotional payout, and we talked about that throughout the podcast. You get to see what went wrong in the future. Should be able to see, while characters are making active attempts to save mankind and mutants from a terrible future in the past, you should be able to see these payoffs, because everything's happening in real time with that tether. Sort of the impact that the characters are feeling between the 2 different timelines, I think, could have been honed in a little bit more. We don't see them panicking. It seems like everyone in the future is like, yeah, we've died 30 times. We just don't remember it. The emotional payout took a backseat to the action. While it was a summer action movie, there's nothing wrong with action. There's nothing wrong with feel goods and feels tied in with your action. Guardians of the Galaxy as an example, or Endgame, the finger snap. We can have both. These are character stories of characters we've seen for many, many years. To say, well, he's Wolverine, he stabs people, he can't cry. I would disagree with that. We can do that, and it's kind of the movie, I think, should have focused on that a little bit more. The biggest heinous thing, I realize there's the Kitty Pryde time travel thing that they were honing to in the comics. But I guess that was the improvements I would make to the film overall, just to get a different kind of a different emotional reaction out of the film, so that it feels more of an encompassing farewell to the cast, and also presents this sort of and Martin Scorsese says it's not really cinema if you're not asking a question of some sort of morality or evoking a response from people. And I think in this movie, if you just change a couple things, you can have that action, but you can also ask people coming out of the theater, can we do better? Is the future going to be this bleak because we continue to do shitty things to each other? There is a way to elicit that response without interrupting the entertainment you're paying for. And I think Bryan Singer, not that it was a bad movie by any means, I think the X-Men franchise on the whole with Fox has been afraid to ask that question. And all of the movies tie back to the same sort of we don't like mutants topic, but they haven't really put it in a way that is just in your face. Here it is. Can we as people do better with what we have in reality? And I think this is the movie where if you were going to do it, not knowing Logan was coming, this is that film that if you were going to elicit an emotional response and do something that's truly called cinema,
100%.
Hit it on this one. We have the cast.
Right.
We have the actors that can pull it. I mean, there's nothing wrong with Sentinels and mutants fighting it out, but, at the end of the day, I think it's okay to ask that question in a movie that really shows the best and worst in humanity through 2 different timelines and great storytelling.
Can I soapbox for a minute?
Yeah.
If you're listening to this, approximately 8 minutes ago, we had a audio malfunction, and we went from making dick jokes to talking about X-Men to getting into like the deep stuff X-Men can go into. And if I were to make one fix to Days of Future Past, I want to piggyback off Aaron. It's one scene, and the scene is set in the future, and it's Magneto versus Professor X playing chess in the future. And it's echoing the first chess scene we see them play that gets echoed throughout. But the question now is, if this works, do you think we're still going to end up friends? Like, this whole story has been about us, being intertwined and then breaking apart to being actual enemies and then coming back to being allies again. Do you think we're going to be friends after all this? Which is meta-narratively kind of reestablished by the fact that Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen are best friends.
Bros till the end.
Yeah. And I think a scene in this movie that really just... We talk about self-indulgence, and sometimes it's real bad, right? But sometimes in a movie like this, with actors like that and a story like this, just going, yeah, let's take 3 minutes and do a scene where they just kind of go, damn, we might not be friends when we reset all this. Is this going to be worth it? Is the payoff to our characters going to be, important enough that when we reset everything, we will resolve our shit again? Or is there going to be a Brotherhood mutant war? Like that conversation happening in subtext over top of a chess game. That is, again, the emotional depth that X-Men and Cape films can go to when they really let themselves and when they really earn it.
So I have 2 to 3 more bullet points, but I can go through them very quickly because they're not...
Sure.
They're more like addendums to this entire episode. They're not major things.
Okay.
The last thing I guess I would change, and I know in the comics it's Shadowcat. I think for the broader audience, it the suspension of disbelief for her to send his consciousness back into... They could have done anything else.
Yeah.
They could have... let's be real. If I'm not mistaken, in the comics, Bishop's one of the catalysts for the change. Like, he goes back in time at some point, right? I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
I would have been fine with them sending Bishop back trying to talk to Wolverine, who's not in his own body or whatever, and then, 2 minutes into his explanation of the future, he gets gunned down by a sentinel or whatever, and Wolverine just sees him, get a hole through his chest and go, oh, crap,
right.
It's real. That would have been a little silly, I get it, but just the Shadowcat thing, I like that you brought up the tether, and that actually gave me some closure on that topic. I was going to be far more aggressive, no, just no, Cable or Bishop, or this doesn't happen. And then you're like, well, the active tether gives you a good reason why that's there. And I'm like, okay, I can make my peace with that now that somebody said it.
That was my same thought process. It was like, oh, I'm not mad anymore. Okay, I'm good.
Okay, so the only other 2 things, and this was not related to this movie, but I promised at the beginning of this, we have stuff that kerfucks with the previous ones and the ones after, and I actually took notes on it. Stuff outside this movie messes with is actually what the topic line is for these. The Apocalypse Magneto mindset. He goes from okay to angry to full-blown good guy trying to coexist with humanity and Dark Phoenix, which, by the way, even if you didn't like that film, it's there. It would have been nice to see a more... And I think the same, and I'm going to bring up Mystique, the same thing. Through First Class all the way through Dark Phoenix, we treat the characters as though they're separate entities based on what we need them to be in the film we're shooting. And I say we as the studio. There's not a lot of continuity in terms of Magneto's character. We have First Class, the Quentin Tarantino scene, which was fantastic, and then the movie ends on a quarter going through somebody's brain. Also awesome.
Yeah. Which, by the way, that quarter actually shows up in the road cut.
Shit.
That's right.
Oh.
Yeah, there's a small little cutaway in the little archive room where it shows Angel's wings and Magneto's helmet, Havoc's whatever the hell that thing is that he wears
chest
on his
piece.
chest.
Yeah.
Yeah, you actually see off in the corner of the room, you see that coin that went through Kevin Bacon's head.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know why they have that, but
Um,
it's a thing.
is this the movie where Havoc died?
No, that's
That's
Apocalypse.
Yeah,
Apocalypse.
not
Okay,
technically.
I'm not going to touch on that then.
Havoc is in this for like 5 minutes, and then he's
Yeah,
gone.
also that. He was in more Axe commercials for the previous movie and for this one. Or no, for this one. He was in Axe commercials more than he was in the movie.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, that
Yep.
was terrible.
Yep.
Well,
And now he's
Oy.
MacGyver.
wait, what?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
He's, in it. He's the star of
about
the remade MacGyver TV show.
Oh, shit. Okay.
He plays MacGyver.
Great. So, again, going back, sorry, Mystique's character throughout the movies, everyone else mostly stay the same. Beast gets more angry,
Yeah.
but that's actually a good progression. Beast is the good progression of what it's like to actually get continuity between the films, and Magneto and Mystique are the opposite. They are like
Yeah.
bipolar
Yeah.
kids, not taking their meds
Yep.
between them. So Mystique starts out full-blown good guy, like, I kind of want to screw my half-brother, adopt a guy that mind-wiped his parents to take me in, to joining the Brotherhood. Sorry, I had to say it because that was a weird vibe in First Class out of everything. Like her emotional
You're not
response,
wrong.
her emotional response to him hitting on the chick with 2 eye colors is that she can't control her shit and gets 2 different eye colors.
Yep.
Good stuff. But Mystique's full-blown good guy. End of this movie. Previous movies, she's like full-blown good guy and then goes to Brotherhood. A bunch of stuff happens between movies, and at the beginning of this one, she's a little more jaded, a little more angry about her friends dying, and that's understandable. And then throughout the course of the film, we don't touch on what makes her different. We've covered that a bunch. Next movie, Enter Apocalypse. She apparently doesn't give 2 shits that she ever tried to stand up for mutants, or is jaded about it, or doesn't want to be famous, or whatever the fuck that was in Apocalypse could take a back seat to like actual character progression. You don't go back on the stuff that you did because it got you famous and you don't like it.
Right.
Like, stick with your decisions.
Well, they doubled down on the backwardsness to take her from, yeah, she's fully like over there to, yeah, she's leading the X-Men at the end of this movie. Fuck you.
Right, and I think they wanted to show that, but it's just like, bitch, make up your mind which side you're on. And I'm not saying
Right.
she's actually a bitch,
Right.
but it's just like in terms of the writer, like I was calling the writer a bitch, not character Mystique. Like, writer, make up your mind. What is she doing? Because by Dark Phoenix, she's leading the X-Men, and then she's impaled on a toothpick.
Right.
Oh, wait. Sorry. Did somebody not see the movie yet? It's in the trailer. Sorry.
No, I think if you're listening to this episode, you've probably seen all of them, and unless you're Brandon, the 2 that you need to go watch are not going to be a fun time, so please drink responsibly.
Dark Phoenix wasn't that bad.
It's definitely improved by
It's-
drinking.
Boring. It's very boring.
It was more entertaining than Deadpool 1 over the third time.
I would totally disagree with that.
I haven't even seen Dark Phoenix yet. And I'm probably gonna
the
disagree.
only reason
It's very
Sorry.
flat. It's very. They wanted to use the shooting style and color timing of Logan for the last X-Men movie.
did they?
Not a good decision.
No. Oh.
No.
That works for
No.
Logan.
If-
it does not work for the X-Men.
So
If I had to pick an issue with Dark Phoenix, it's that the whole film feels like deleted scenes from other X-Men movies.
yeah,
Yes.
no. And,
this is the extra.
Okay.
This is the extra shit that's left
yeah,
over.
no, I would agree with that, and especially that I was touching on it earlier, where I was like, okay, Mystique and Magneto can't figure their shit out. We go from Apocalypse police murder scene in Apocalypse, right, to him going full blown bad guy Apocalypse, and he's like, oh, maybe going full bad guy was a bad idea. This super mutant guy's kind of a dick. And then and then somehow like he's okay with everyone at the end of the first one to an extent. And then we go into Dark Phoenix and he's like, nah, I moved away and I formed actually by the way, just in case you're not aware, Genosha was an island that he made in the comics. Genosha is more of an idea than it is a place, and wherever Magneto goes, usually a new Genosha pops up. The place in Dark Phoenix is Genosha.
That's Genosha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so he's running Genosha, but also at the same time, we actually see everything that should have been a little bit more of a journey for Magneto come to a pretty good culmination in Dark Phoenix. And I think that's part of the thing that carried the movie for me a little bit, was we actually got to see what happens when some of these characters get kind of their swan song, kind of where they're supposed to end up. And Magneto's was one of the things that was passably good about Dark Phoenix. I'm not saying the movie wasn't a shit show, it was, but
Yeah, I mean, like, that's the last film Michael Fassbender worked on that got released to theaters, so take that as you will.
You're not wrong.
Let's bring this thing to a head.
Yeah. No, that was my last points.
Yeah. I want to wax poetic for a minute, mostly because, and Aaron, you didn't know this was going to happen, so surprise. This is the last episode before The Rise of Skywalker, and we're going to go full film rescue on that, I promise. But on this episode, being what it is, and Aaron being the guest that he is, I'd like to jump to Brandon and Jesse and do maybe an X-Men style recap of the last season of the show that you've been on. Film rescue your own season. I want to start with Jesse. You are I think the most recent host to join. You jumped in. You went, I mean, full deep end. You've had a good time, if I have to assume anything about what you've been doing on the show so far.
I would not call it a good time for that 6 hours of BBS.
If you were to have a character development for the season from when you started to now, how would you see that as a story thing?
This is what it feels like to slowly become Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer. Jesus, the amount of trash I have consumed this season is amazing. Just Polar and BVS and Southland Tales and just like the garbage that has entered my eyeballs is incredible. And so I'm really looking forward to laying into Rise of Skywalker where I can just unload on that fucking thing.
Do you think you have learned to appreciate good films more having watched the kind of movies that I have forced you to watch?
Yes. What's the derogatory term when you have sex with somebody that's less attractive than somebody, like, what is it? You have to plow a 4 to appreciate an 8?
Hate fucking?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, basically. Like, you have to watch the garbage in order to understand why the good stuff is really good.
Yeah.
Like, you look at Dark Phoenix and compare it to Logan. Like, here's where it can really go bad, and there's where it can really go good.
Yeah.
My gripe about Logan is they said they turned off his healing due to sugar. Yeah.
I mean, they
put the chemicals into the water supply.
Yeah,
and the food supply.
they do play
It's
into
like
that.
it's like how
halfway
in
through the
America
movie.
they put fluoride in the water.
Right.
Yeah.
All
It's
right,
the
Jesse
same.
Ventura. That's your new last name. Not Jesse Boyfriend anymore. It's Jesse Ventura.
Oh Jesus!
If it
That's a
bleeds,
joke.
we can kill it.
I will never call you that. Brandon,
Thank God.
you've been on the show since the end of season 1. You went through 2 and into
Sounds about
3.
right.
What has your character development been across these episodes?
I feel like my character development was written by Simon Kinberg.
Slowly getting worse and worse and worse as time goes on.
Yeah.
More
yeah.
and more disjointed.
Shots fired.
I am talking wallpaper. It's fine. That's all I got. I don't know what else to say. I've never been asked to describe my character development because I want to get out of the movie that I'm currently in the 34th year that it is. But that's not meant to be read in a very dark way. But it's just this movie needs to get better by the time it reaches year 35 in 2 months.
These are.
Because starting with year 30, it hasn't been that great of a movie, so it needs to pick up steam fast. Otherwise, I want the movie
These
to
are
end.
specific circumstances in that it's we're on Corona time right now, so
Right.
everything is kind of a mess
So
right now for everybody.
my reason for asking this question is, I know.
How dare you,
Fuck
Seth?
me. The reason for asking is both of you guys have entered the top 10 rung of downloaded episodes for the show. Sometimes for multiple instances. The come up, I think both of you kind of jumped on the show going, yeah, this is going to be a good time, and then kind of went into the Hall of Fame very quickly. Me watching you guys has been the Logan of this whole thing, going like, oh, hey, here's an interesting person, to like, oh, fuck, this is the best thing that we've ever done. And it applies to both of you. Like, we went from, Brandon did Friday the 13th, Part 8.
Part 8.
Jason Takes Manhattan.
'Cause I intentionally went for the worst one because I figured I only knew so much about this podcast going into it. It's like, I know if I have to do Friday the 13th, I'm intentionally going to go for the worst one.
And
They ride on that boat in
there
that,
we go. And I
that lake
basically,
to get to Manhattan. Okay.
and if you look at a map, that's not a thing. Jason's resurrections are more plausible than that. And somehow I turned it into Predator. I don't even know how I did that. Well, maybe more so Dog Soldiers.
And we made Victor
but same
watch
difference.
Dog Soldiers, so that's the real win there.
Dog Soldiers was
from,
great.
oh, so good.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
we went from that pitch to Final Fight, which is like I think number 5 or 6 downloaded episode of the show. That's not even a movie. Like, that doesn't exist.
Nope. Talk about starting
Right.
almost from scratch. It's like take a game, like it's based on a game, but a game that has like a paper thin plot. But at that point, I'm like, all right, so I can take elements that are canon from other games that are technically in the same universe that actually will not mess up the canon, while also adding things that also
Right.
don't really contradict. So that was like me, like slowly going through like a multi-page
Right.
WordPad doc to make this work, and I
And you
still
killed
don't
it.
know how I did that.
And then
but here we are.
Jesse jumps
Well,
on the
thank you.
show to not do Man of Steel. and then
What was that?
and then
I take
to
part of the
go
blame.
on to do Man of Steel, which is again top 10 downloaded episodes, to then go on to do Batman v Superman. Like,
Which he said he wouldn't do.
it feels like we wrote your character
well.
development into the show. I just
You made me the villain. Damn it.
no.
What is it? What's the phrasing? You either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
So
Right.
I'm gonna put my name in for new villain. I liked both of those movies.
There are things to like in them.
Kick him off.
My point being, we kind of pushed you into villain territory, only for you within this and Palette Cleanser to come back around to be like, yeah, Sony did something right. That I'm quoting you.
That's right. I praise Sony and I praise Green Lantern.
You're the Magneto of the show. You went from evil from ally to evil to ally. Everything parallels with X-Men in a really great way.
Yeah.
I guess this makes Erin the Dark Phoenix, so maybe she gets 2 do-overs before.
Makes sense because she has red hair.
I don't really have red hair, but I mean I do and I don't.
No, our Aaron.
Oh,
No.
Yeah,
Oh.
Erin
Aaron with an E.
Yes,
Okay.
not you.
Not Aaron.
You done messed up, Aaron.
Yeah. No, I actually do
Hey.
have reddish hair though. That's the funny part.
Aaron, on the show, I want to ask you: have you listened to previous episodes? And like, I guess I'm curious for a. I'm kind of getting you're a nuanced guy. You kind of read into things. What is your impression of this show before being on it and then being on it?
Honestly, I've done 1 or 2 other podcasts. I ran it, but it was mostly tabletop related. And then I've done a bit of streaming. I've done a bit of competitive gaming. I sell mattresses now. And honestly, I hadn't listened to an episode, and that was almost deliberate. I say that out of, I truly do. Because there's a certain amount of, with podcasts, I've listened to enough. I used to play competitive War Machine. I listened to podcasts religiously. I mean, something like 20 hours of podcasts a week to get tips and stuff like that. And it's sort of, you can sort of get the tone, much like a TV show season, you sort of get the tone as you listen to it. And to be a guest star on something where there's already sort of a pre-existing thing, I think rather than come in with sort of, I listen to it, I get an expectation of what it's like, and then I show up and it might be different. I sort of just put the blindfold on, even though I knew where to find the episodes. I deliberately didn't download them. I didn't watch them. I didn't do anything other than write my own notes for the episode. And then I decided after the fact, after it would be organic and come off naturally as opposed to preconceived notions, I could go back and listen to them. And that's just because I didn't want to step in and like try and do something different. I wanted to go in blind and be told like, here's how it's done, rather than come in and be like, well, I know how this is done, and I could just step in and drop my dick on the table, and everyone's gonna go, oh damn. No,
There's the dick jokes again. I knew they'd come back.
No, it's just like in a locker room. You're never the guy with the big dick in the locker room, but you've seen it just thwack. I'm kidding. But I really did want to come in blind and make it a more organic thing where I had no expectations. Kind of like a movie. If you don't have expectations, it goes better than if you have the hype already.
Yeah.
So I was trying not to get too excited, but it's been actually a lot of fun.
I'm glad you had a great time. Obviously, season 4, we want to have you back. I don't care what you fix. I think you suggested Black Panther in your email.
I sure did.
You mentioned another movie we forced another movie onto you in this show. Who knows where it goes?
Which one?
You're asking a very not sober person to remember something.
I know the email. I said Black Panther, Amazing Spider-Man 2, Days of Future Past.
No,
We already did that.
No, I know you did.
on-
He said that in the email, and
and
earlier in the podcast.
on the show, I said, "Would you fix that?"
Would I fix what?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to remember.
Yeah. Whatever it was.
Yes.
I agreed to it then.
It was Quantum of Solace. That's Quantum of
Right.
Solace.
That's what it
Quantum
was.
Solace.
Oh, yeah. No. Without
'Cause
Gaslighting
I
Fire.
think
Yeah.
because I made it. A few episodes ago, I said I made it a mandate that we need to take a break from superheroes for a little while
This is the last one.
because we have done so many this season
Yeah.
that it's just like, how many times can we keep saying, I wish the movie had more character development? Because all the same problems keep showing up.
Yeah.
So it's like we can't keep saying the same things over and over again because we're going to start repeating ourselves. So
Do you
I
think
think the only thing that's officially lined up for next season as a superhero film is Green Lantern with Jack Pack.
we could
That's the only thing that's lined up.
Do you think we could write a blank superhero film with the rules of what we've discovered on the show and make it like the most interesting plot regardless
I already did. It was called Bloodshot.
Oof. Yeah.
There's the villain character development for the show.
Hey, I did it.
I want to end close to here. I'll let Brandon and Jesse plug their stuff. Brandon, what do you have going on?
Nothing too recent. I mean, I'm not sure when this episode will actually air, but about a month from when we're recording this, Criterion is releasing their Bruce Lee box set, which, as everyone that I normally correspond with knows, I got to assist with, which was definitely a dream come true for high school me 20 years ago. Not only that, but my audio commentary for The Big Boss that I had recorded back in 2016, which was on the Shout Factory release of that individual film, will also be in this Criterion set. So yes, I have recorded an audio commentary that is in a Criterion Collection release. I can die. Well, not die happy,
that
but
means
just
you're
die.
immortal, technically, because
so-
Criterion films will never disappear.
Yeah, they'll be around forever.
Evidently. Well, the tricky thing is with Criterion is there is the licensing thing, but that being said, once it goes out of print, it's going to be like one of those holy grails that you see on eBay. So, I did that Criterion Bruce Lee box set that has the commentary with that guy.
me.
So, yeah, there you go. I mean, to be fair, Mike Leader does commentaries for like 4 of the films. I only just do the one, but that's because I was smart enough to go, yeah, I'm only going to do a commentary for this one because it's the one where I know I won't shut up for an hour and 40 minutes. But I kept it organized. I had like a metric fuck ton of notes, scene specific, and like wherever I knew I couldn't talk about any specific things for a certain scene, it's like, okay, I can fill in with trivia about other things that are not scene specific. Like doing commentaries for films you didn't work on can be tricky. I've only done 2, but it's definitely an undertaking, and it's like, because the internet being the internet, if you slip up even slightly, they will crucify your ass. So I had that, like taking my anxiety up to a level 110%. So that was fun. But yeah, so it's definitely a very surreal thing. I mean, maybe someday I'll do a commentary for something that I've directed, but in that case, yeah, I won't need notes. I'll just be like, oh yeah, this thing happened that day, and I ate a really shitty sandwich.
Would you do
when
commentary
I
for
directed that
Goldfish?
scene,
Real question.
Deal. Sure, absolutely. I mean, that should only be a thing. Do a crew commentary, a cast commentary. You can't do cast and crew because everyone's just gonna probably get hammered.
So I have a serious question about commentary on stuff. If the internet crucifies you, what size nails do they use?
9-inch.
Well, no, I'm saying because he specifically said his ass. So I'm thinking, is it 1 inch? Just enough to poke the butt? I'm kidding.
Aaron, I'm going to get to you in a second. I have words for you. Jesse, what do you have going on in the world that people can look up on the internet?
The other podcast that we're doing, That Weird Ass Game, where we talk about weird and out there games. The next episode will be Eternal Darkness. We'll get to that probably
this week.
Maybe next weekend.
Maybe this week
if we have time.
Maybe this week.
I'm working a lot.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I forgot.
I'm back to work.
I'm halfway through my replay, so I'm ready to go whenever. But it's your show.
That being said, if you still want me to ramble at some point about MK versus DC, let me know. I'll admit it's been a hot minute since I played it, mainly thanks to the fact that my PS3 bricked like a half a decade ago. But like as so self-contained as that game is, and how little I should say replayability that it has, I can easily go through it, and I've done the research on as to like why the game turned out the way it did. But I still stand by the fact that I will call it a necessary evil for where we currently are with Mortal Kombat today.
I really like to cover that because it's just such a bizarre crossover. Like Kingdom Hearts is the same way. Like why is Final Fantasy and Disney crossing over?
Right.
It's one of those weird things.
See, in some cases though, like I forgot who said it. It might have even been like an X-Play thing back in the days of G4, where they said, was this game just like a delayed reaction to Marvel Superhero versus Street Fighter?
Oh, yeah.
Because they did it first, like over a decade earlier. Everybody remembers X-Men. Well, no. There was a Marvel versus Street Fighter. I had to look it up. It's actually... What's so funny is you had X-Men versus Street Fighter first, which I remember seeing that in arcades, but then the one that got popular was Marvel vs. Capcom, but in between there was a lesser play title that actually was Marvel vs. Street Fighter. It's much rarer than X-Men vs. Street Fighter or Marvel vs. Capcom. It's really weird, but I think I can actually like the best
answer why that happened right now for you.
Which one?
Why
Capcom
why
ones
MK
or
versus DC happened. I can answer that for you right now.
Oh yeah, I know quite a bit about that one. It's the Street Fighter one that I need more research.
You were saying it was like a decade late. It wasn't. The release of it almost coincided.
No, the review called it that. One of the reviews said, was this just a reaction to that? Like, no, the biggest part of it was like Midway was desperate because like, none of our franchises are making money except Mortal Kombat. Quick, let's do a crossover with DC so we can make money. Yeah, the game broke even, and then Midway had to shutter, and then Midway Chicago became NetherRealm Studios.
Well, that's the short version. But actually, if you look at the timeline of releases, Marvel vs. Capcom 2 had just come out on arcades and DLC platforms approximately 14 to 16 months prior to the release of MK vs. DC. So it was actually a reaction to the huge sales of that. Was part of it, why it was in development in the first place.
Brandon, have you seen National Treasure? Okay.
I have not.
There's a scene in that where the main character gets talked down to by the sidekick. And I'm about to do that to you. I know where there is an arcade version of Marvel vs. Street Fighter in the real world as of 2016.
By chance, is it that place
no,
in PA you were
it is
telling me
not
about?
that place. That's Time something. I can't remember the name of that arcade. Timeline.
Timeline?
It is not that place. It is in Virginia Beach, Virginia. Yes,
Really?
And it is on the Boardwalk Strip in an arcade. And the only reason I know this is I played a show there with a band that I liked, and their lead guitarist, I would say schooled me, but I'm going to say fucked my ass cheeks in that game.
Get 10 feet!
We played 50 cents worth, and I went, nope, I'm not going to do this anymore. This isn't fun. You're too good at this game. And that's the only reason I know it exists.
Wow. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Galloping Ghost outside of Chicago
yeah.
has it. They have almost everything.
Jesse, that podcast is called That Weird Ass Game, right?
Yep,
Right.
that's correct.
The end. Aaron, I've got one word for you. Fuck. How did we go almost 100 episodes? A, before we got you on the show, and B, before you broke this show. This is not a normal episode. I mean, it's normal in the fact that there are no normal episodes, but also, like, you got us to talk about other movies during the negatives. The pitch was just, hey, here's a couple improvements. Also, let's talk about other things. The energy was like 100% what we are always looking for. Dude, fuck. Where did you come from? And where did you go? Where did you come from, Cotton Eye Joe?
Cotton Eye Joe.
Where'd you come from, Cotton Eye Joe?
No, I came from. I play Conqueror's Blade with one of your co-hosts.
Yes.
Yes.
Josh.
Yes. And he did a plug on our Discord for the game. And I took one look at it. I'm like, oh my god, I want in on this. And he deliberately did a plug saying, if anyone wants to come do this podcast, he's on a couple episodes. And I immediately was like, oh my god, this is my wet dream. We get to pick apart the stuff that we didn't like about movies. That's all I did when I fucking worked at Blockbuster. I get to do it for fun on a weekend. Fuck it. I took the day off, actually, out of work to make this happen. And that's okay, because yesterday I did so much. I needed a day off after yesterday. That's okay. So that's sort of where I came from, was just random. If you know a person, they know a person, and that's where I came from. I guess if I had a plug, first off, Eternal Darkness is a really good game. Yeah, right. If I had a plug for anything, I would say it came out about 2.5, 3 weeks ago. I would say go check out. There's a game that came out on Steam. First off, check out Conqueror's Blade if you like tactical games. It's very fun. If I had a plug for anything, I'm going to be trying to get streamer support for a game that came out about 3 weeks ago because they're looking for people. It's called Shadow Arena, and if you're not familiar with it, it's on Steam. It is free to play. It's done by the guys who do Black Desert Online. They're not paying me to say this. I have no incentive for doing this other than it's a very enjoyable game. Black Desert Online never took off. I mean, as an MMO, it's a very pretty game, and if you need a really cheap character editor for any D&D campaign, and you need somebody that looks awesome, and like, you can go to the editor and make anything, and it's awesome.
Yeah.
And when it goes on sale for 80% off, a $2 character editor where you can take screenshots from any angle is perfectly worth $2 in my book.
Totally.
Shadow Arena is by those same developers. On that same engine, they haven't changed much. What it is it's a battle royale title of 40 people on the combat engine from the MMO, and it just does a lot of things right. There's no guns. It's mostly melee. It's kind of like what a battle royale would be if you take a 3D fighter with actual really precise timings, kind of like a battle arena Soul Calibur mixed with like a jungle from a MOBA. You go around and you can kill some camps, you can get some items, you can combine them to make your gear better, and then there's a PvP aspect to it. But I'm trying to get streamer status for that, A, because they're looking for people, and B, it's just good to once in a while go beat somebody up, and it's a good bit of fun. So that's my only plug, really. I mean, if I'm back on the show and we're doing season 4 or whatever, if I ever come back on the show, there is a good chance I'll have a Kickstarter for something coming up soon that's very near and dear to my heart. If I can get it going and it license a pretty popular Netflix show, I'm still working out the details. If nothing ever comes of it, I'll say what that is later, but right now I'm trying to license a pretty popular Netflix show that's going on season 4, and I won't say more than that for a game. So
interesting. I'm intrigued.
I can totally tell you what it is in a separate channel, but I won't say it on here.
Off air, send it to me just in case I need to catch up on something.
Yeah.
This is the part of the show I don't like doing because I'm at 100 episodes now, almost, and I've said it 100 times, literally. But, hey, sometimes new people are listening to these shows, and I don't want to disclude those people. I want them to know what the fuck is up. And here's what the fuck is up. You can be on the show, just like Aaron, just like every guest that has been on the show so far, from the depths of the internet to the celebrities with verified check marks. We've had a range on the show, and it could be you. Here's what you have to do. First, pick a movie. Any movie. That's it. Step 2. Accept The Room and Troll 2 and whatever else I post onto the website when it's done.
Miami Connection.
Yeah, that's on there.
Anything that's
Samurai
good,
Cop.
bad, don't use it.
Yeah. Step 2. Think up a pitch, in which I mean at least one sentence of why you don't like the movie and what you would like to see happen hypothetically in your imagination. Step 3, you're on the show. Holy shit, that was so easy.
Step 4,
profit. We have never paid a guest. I know Reddit thinks otherwise. We have never paid a guest.
Yes.
I don't.
Reddit, we don't pay anybody. We make no money off of it.
I'm here
I
for
don't
free
get paid
to talk
to be on the
about
show.
Magneto's junk in other movies.
Right. If you want to be on the show, there are a few ways to get in touch with us. I think by the time this episode goes up, you can go to filmrescueshow.com. If you can't, sorry. That's Devin's fault, not my fault.
Throw him
Absolutely.
under the RV.
If that site is blocked, go to filmrescueshow@gmail.com to send us an email, or on Instagram and Twitter at Film Rescue Show. Send us a DM with your movie pick, at least one sentence, if not a full fucking 10-page layout if you're Victor Grubb doing your pitch for what to do on the show. This is always a great time. Aaron, I'm going to put you on the spot. Review the show right now in 16 words or less.
Jesus.
That was a joke. You don't have to do that.
What people who love movies talk about while working boring jobs?
That's a good review. I'm not going to lie. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
And it's exactly my time at Blockbuster, too.
The only other way you could help me specifically is by putting money in my wallet. And the way to do that is patreon.com/MontresorMedia. Extended, uncut, unfiltered, and unreleased episodes of this show exist there, as well as early access to this and the other shows we do, as well as bloopers for our short films, as well as, I don't know, maybe Jesse porn eventually. I mean, he does nudes, right? He's got to. He's a adult male. Whatever we decide is going to be.
I don't have an OnlyFans account yet. Damn it.
Yet. It's $1.
Redefine hardcore bloodshed.
Damn. That was a good one.
I'm imagining
was a good one.
red and sticky.
It
Uh,
is $1 for access to whatever that Patreon becomes in the future.
Now you got to bump to at least 10 by that point.
If you look in the description for this episode, there's a Discord link. Go there and you can pitch things to the peanut gallery if you want, or just or swim with sharks in that chat that is unmoderated.
it goes on forever.
Sometimes I wake up, like, to get a drink of water, and I look at the Discord, and there's like 50 missed messages, and I go, what have I done?
Yeah.
That's going to do it for this show. 3.5 hours on Days of Future Past. You could literally
Only about 2 of it was dedicated to the actual movie.
You could literally watch this movie twice in the time that we dedicated to the show. Brandon, thank you for being here. Thank you for being on the show in general. I think this turns
yeah,
out to
well,
be
of
episode
course.
99, unless I'm really fucking wrong, and it's Polar that's 99. Who knows what happens? Jesse, thank you for being on the show and being on episode 99.
Of course, this was a fun one. So we have to go through the slog that is Rise of Skywalker.
We're gonna have such a
Snoke.
such a good time with that one. I'm pulling the sense.
I'm getting so fucking drunk.
Me
on that
too.
one. I'm gonna get a whole other bottle of
God.
wine and I'm just gonna drink it right from the bottle. Fuck this.
Aaron, thank you so much for shooting an email, accidentally being on this penultimate episode. You kind of just got the lottery if we had a lottery for this show.
It sounds like it. Yeah, I'd be happy to come back. I'd be happy to come back, and I this is sort of the stuff that I think about after I've seen a movie and I've digested it anyway. And it was a lot
Yeah.
of fun. I didn't consume alcohol for it. I think I was just kind of excited to be here. Maybe on the next one I'll be more like, oh, I did promise I would tell you where that came from.
Yes, please.
Yeah, no. Sorry, I guess plug part 2. There is a YouTube channel called Bad Lip Reading.
Oh, I love them.
Oh yeah.
Ah, yes.
So if you watch the Game of Thrones one about the defunct like medieval park or whatever, there's
Yeah.
actually a scene where somebody's talking to the equivalent to Joffrey, and they say something like "your ass went out with your face" or something like that, and he goes, "Yeah, that's where I got that from."
I love it. I can't promise that I won't steal it in the future.
So just rewatch the original, and you'll see it, and it's just perfect.
Hey, this is Film Rescue Show at its best. This is the end of the episode. If you made it here, you're a trooper. I mean, go watch Kingdom of Heaven or something. Like, dude.
My favorite
Something-
movie of all time is Kingdom of Heaven Director's Cut.
Aaron, I don't like you anymore.
Oh, okay. No, the Director's Cut's
It's a
really
very different movie.
very different
Very
movie.
different
Very
movie.
different movie. Director's Cut, 100%. But anyway,
I'm-
that's a different thing.
I watch every movie for this show, but if anyone wants to fix that, someone else can host.
Wow!
Holy
No,
shit.
the Director's Cut's that good. I don't even care.
That is so much time out of my day that I have to not look at my cell phone.
Oh boy.
It's also
It is 3.5 hours.
yeah, also mostly a joke.
Also,
I hope everyone knows everything on my show is at least 90% joking, if not.
So you won't sit through Kingdom of Heaven, but you still want to see the Snyder Cut, which is the same length.
Yes.
What the fuck?
I
Well,
was gonna say, sir, I don't know that I want to be here again. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Aaron, did we just become best friends?
Possibly. I still liked parts of BVS, and you should still watch the director's cut of Kingdom of Heaven.
I do it for you, honestly, just because
It
you
is that.
asked.
I'll send you a copy. I love that movie so much. I've owned 8 copies of it. Every time.
What the fuck?
Hold on, hear me out. Every time somebody says they haven't seen it, I give them my current copy and I go buy a new one.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're a
okay.
good Samaritan.
Because I believe in passing on my favorite movie. Yeah, I do
Yeah,
that.
totally. That's why I give out copies of the Muppet movie to people. Here's the end of the show. Thank you so much for listening, and good night.